Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, what is Open Mic? I'm glad that you asked. You see, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we take the second half of the show to take live questions. But here on the weekends, that's all we do is take your questions, and that's why we call it Open Mic. Now, this is Sunday. Normally, we do Open Mic on Saturdays. However, this weekend, Friday was mine and Ann's 10th wedding anniversary, so we took off out of town for a couple of days, so we didn't have Open Mic on Saturday, but we are back now, and it's good to have you all here with us. I hope you guys have had a wonderful weekend so far, filled with all the things that bring you rest, relaxation, enjoyment, and fun, whatever those things may be. All right, guys, listen, with all that down, let's not waste any time and dive into it, but I'm going to let you guys know, I found out that back, I think it was Wednesday's show, there was a glitch in the program that I use that feeds me the live questions, and a whole bunch got skipped. Like a whole bunch got skipped. So I went back in, and I think I recovered almost all of them. I may not have gotten every single last one, but I did dig into the logs. I think I got all of them. So we're going to start today's show by just getting caught up on those skipped questions from Wednesday, and then we'll flow right into the new questions that we've got here for today. So, all right, let's jump into it here. We're going to get things started with Jose Santiago, who writes, with theaters looking for ways to entice people back to the theaters, what do you think of the idea of theaters having a quote-unquote grand reopening of the movie theater by giving limited releases of big screen classics? Imagine being able to see Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Godfather, etc., leading up to the release of the latest highly anticipated blockbuster, Tenet. It might not be the most profitable way to open, but I think it would certainly reignite the romance. Thoughts? Well, I mean, here's the things, Jose, we've been saying for a long time. We've been saying for a couple of months now that, look, they need to reopen the theaters before Tenet hits, right? Because you can't just open day one with Tenet and expect, you got to get people back into the habit of going back to the movie theaters, letting word spread that the theaters are open again. And so we've been saying for a long time, the way to do that and what they are most likely doing and what some theaters are already doing, as a matter of fact, across the country, is playing classic films. Some theaters are playing the movies that were just getting into theaters when the theater shut down. So movies like, I don't know, The Gentleman, movies like Invisible Man, movies like Onward, things like that. But a lot of them are also playing classics. And we've had a lot of people writing in saying, hey, our movie theater's open again. There's no new movies, but they're playing Lord of the Rings, right? So yeah, that is absolutely the way to go. Because you need the theaters open. You need word starting to spread that theaters are open. You got to get some people back into the habit of going to theaters, and then you launch Tenet. And of course, I think with the word being that, Regal and AMC are going to be opening in July, maybe even close to mid-July, it sounds like Warner Brothers thought, well, you know what? They need to be open a little bit longer than just a few days for us to open Tenet. So, of course, they just announced that they're moving Tenet. No big deal. They moved it 2 weeks. It's not like they moved it 6 months. They moved it 2 weeks. And I think their main purpose of that was to, again, get people back into the habit of going back to the theater again. That's why they're going to release, I believe it's Inception, they're releasing for the 10th anniversary on the 17th instead. Again, all just a part to do that. So absolutely, Jose, that's what I think they're already doing. All right, next up. We've got the Wakanda Forever writes, I'm going to tell you all with a tear in my eye, Justin Welsh, Make Them Hear You Indeed. Great song, voice and message. That made my day. We all really needed that, especially with what's been going on here in Wakanda. Salute to you, sir, Wakanda Forever. Of course, that Justin Welsh is one of our viewers who sent in him singing a song. He's a Canadian postal worker by profession, but he's also a singer. And he sent in a song of him singing Let Them Hear You, which from Ragtime, and it was awesome. It was so awesome I played it on the show, and I enjoyed it very much as well, Wakandan. All right, Mohammed Ibrahim writes, hey, John and Rob, regarding the J.J. Abrams Superman movie, what I would like to see from him is an Elseworlds Superman movie, like the one that Michael B. Jordan talks about. When it comes to Henry Cavill, I think that he should only be doing Superman movies with Zack. That makes no sense. With Zack, those two are a great team, and I would love to see another Man of Steel from them. Thanks and stay safe. No, I don't agree at all that Henry Cavill can only be Superman if Zack Snyder's directing him. No, that's ridiculous. Because if you went by that notion, hey, Iron Man was great when he was directed by Jon Favreau, then he should only be Iron Man when Jon Favreau's directing. Obviously not. They had Iron Man being directed by many directors afterwards. and it all worked out great. The same can be said of a lot of the MCU things. So no, I don't agree whatsoever. I mean, I love Zack's Man of Steel, of course. And I like the way he used Henry Cavill, but that by no means he's the only director who can direct Henry Cavill. I don't know if I agree about having JJ do an Elseworlds thing. I mean, it's possible. DC is certainly looking at doing more Elseworlds stuff. They've already done Elseworlds stuff, with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. They're looking at more right now of making individual standalone movies, which I think is good. So, I mean, I don't know. I would like to see J.J. Abrams kind of plug into what their main thing is, but I wouldn't be against it because I am a champion for, standalone movies. I hate the modern trend that anything that's a comic book movie has to be part of a shared cinematic universe. I hate that. I love the shared cinematic universe. I do. I hate the idea that that's the only thing you can have. That's part of the reason why I was so excited about Joker. So maybe they do, maybe they don't. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Mr. Golfwang writes, which is the better film, Spider-Man 3 or Rise of Skywalker? I say Spider-Man 3. Look, the thing with both Spider-Man 3 and Rise of Skywalker is that they're both bad films that have positive elements. Thomas Hayden Church, I thought was very good in Spider-Man 3. I always liked Tobey Maguire in Spider. They didn't have him doing the best stuff, but I mean, I always like him in those movies. So it's close. It's close. I think I will slightly lean towards Spider-Man 3. Again, both bad movies, but they also each have some positive things in them. Neither of them are complete absolute train wrecks in my opinion, but they're both bad. But I'll say that the positives in Spider-Man 3 slightly outweighs the positives in Rise of Skywalker, but ever so slightly. It would be really close. It would be close. All right, Denpool's Unicorn writes, thank you for the recommendation of Black Klansman. Just saw it on HBO Max last night and it had great performances and style. Plus gave me stuff to research like The Birth of a Nation, the history of that film, and wow. Black Klansman, look, I like Spike Lee. He certainly has some films. We talk a lot about Do the Right Thing, and I am actually really, really big fan of Jungle Fever. But, he's also done some stuff that I haven't thought was all that great. So I thought the idea for Black Klansman was interesting. Of course, you got Washington, who is going to be starring in Tenet. You also had Driver, who obviously is in Star Wars and all that kind of stuff. Was this going to work? It was an interesting idea, but was it going to work? The only movie I liked more than Black Klansman that year was Quiet Place. That's the only movie I liked more. It was my second favorite movie of the year. If you haven't seen Black Klansman, you got to watch it. It's absolutely brilliant. Take Deadpool Unicorn's recommendation, guys. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. It's a great concept with a great message, but it's greatly executed. And, I'm going to take some flack for this because it is getting very highly rated. I finally got around. I didn't get to watch it right away because Ann and I went away for our honeymoon, went away for our anniversary. I did finally last night watch The Five Bloods. And you guys know I've been very excited about that movie because I loved Spike's last one in Black Klansman. I liked The Five Bloods. I didn't love it though. Whereas Black Klansman was a great concept, great message, and great execution. To me, The Five Bloods was great concept, great message, not so wonderful execution. Not so wonderful execution. Like I was able to call everything that was happening in the movie. There's a scene where a guy is walking backwards and talking. I'm like, oh, well, this is about to happen. And then sure enough, 2 seconds later, that happened. And then he's like, oh, well, what if we, and as he's looking at something, I'm like, well, this is what's about. I mean, everything was telegraphed. It didn't have, to me, it didn't have the depth of Black Klansman, but it's still good. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. Like if I put up my review on Rotten Tomatoes, it's going to be one of the positive reviews. I liked it. But the trailers for that movie had me so stoked. The cast for that movie had me so stoked that maybe my expectations were just too high. But anyway, it's a good movie. You should definitely check it out. I just like Black Klansman more though. I don't know. There's something about Black Klansman that works for me on so many different levels. But anyway, there's that. Okay, next up. Deadpool's Unicorn also writes. Also, I have probably meant been. Also, I've been seeing that The Help has been thrown in as a white savior film, and I definitely could see how it comes off that way, but I've always thought Viola's character was the hero of the story, especially after the end church scene. Yeah, I disagree with that completely, that it's a white savior film. I just thought one of the great things about The Help, to me, was that I think it's important for people like me that story was seen through the eyes of somebody like Skeeter, the Skeeter character. It just hit a little bit more home for me seeing it through her eyes. And to me, the message of the film, I never once got the sense watching that movie that Skeeter was the hero. No, to me, the message of that film was, if you want to change society, you've got to have everybody in society involved. You know, you can't just say, oh, that's their problem, let them deal with it. If you've got a problem in our society, it takes society to be involved. Now, it's true like a Viola Davis has come out and said she has some regrets about doing it. But then again, nobody talks about the fact that Octavia Spencer says it's probably the most important movie she's ever done. And I kind of more agree with Octavia Spencer on that but whatever. You know, all movies are subjective. It hits you the way it hits you. All I know is that for me, watching The Help was incredibly powerful. And not everybody has the same opinion, and that's fine. But I thought it was incredibly powerful. I thought one of the things that made it especially powerful for somebody like me was seeing it through the eyes of somebody who's more in a position like me. You know, somebody like a Skeeter. And to see things, for her to see things the way they were. And then you see these heroic characters like Octavia and Viola's characters. I don't know. I've never agreed at all with that particular criticism of it but that's just because of the subjective impact that movie made on me. Like, I remember I walked out of the studio lot because I saw it on the studio lot, and I walked out of the theater on the studio lot, and I just stood there. I swear to God, I just stood there for like 4 minutes. Just like, I was so overwhelmed by what I saw. And I remember got on Facebook immediately, and I sent out on Facebook, because I wasn't allowed at the time to say what movie it was I just saw because of the embargo, but I wrote, I just saw a movie that reminds me about why I love movies. And it's just been on that level for me. But hey, every movie is going to hit people in different ways. That's just the way that particular movie hit me. So there you go. All right, next up. Arnold Schwarzenegger writes, hello, John. Hope you and your family are well. We are doing well, thank you. My question is mainly for Rob, who is not here. Since he has access to Villeneuve's Dune script, he has described the script as quite adult in one of his videos. Does this mean that the movie will be R-rated like the miniseries? I don't think so. I mean, it might be. I'm not saying it won't. I'm just saying I don't think so, because here's the thing. When people hear that something is adult, they just means, oh, they say fuck and show boobies. I don't think that's necessarily what it means, you know? Sometimes. But a lot of times, things thematically are very adult. Like very adult themes, very adult tones or stuff like that. Things that really deal with mature, heavier issues or whatnot. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to drop the F-bomb all the time and show a bunch of people banging on screen. So I don't think the term adult necessitates an R rating. Now, it very well could be. I have a feeling Warner Brothers, I don't know, or is it even Warner Brothers? I thought it was Warner Brothers behind Dune. Anyway, but whichever studio is behind it. I don't know. I don't think that necessarily means it will. But then again, I haven't read the script. Rob has, and he's not here, obviously. But I wouldn't make any assumptions at this point. I wouldn't make any assumptions that it's going to be PG-13. I wouldn't make any assumptions that it's going to be rated R. It's still a ways off, so we'll get closer. Once we do, we'll find that out. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. All right. Joshua Richard writes, hey, John, what would you like to see in Pattinson's Bruce Wayne that other versions haven't shown? As I am especially hyped for what he will bring to the table as Bruce Wayne compared to what he will be like as Batman in Pattinson. Well, I mean, listen, just about every aspect of the Batman has been explored to some degree in the different incarnations of Batman that we've had up till now. Everything from Adam West Batman all the way up to Bruce, I almost said Bruce Wayne's Batman, all the way up to the current iterations that we have of Batman today with Ben's Batman. I think if there was one thing that I would say, one element, one aspect I would like to see, because look, there's nothing to the Bruce Wayne character. He's the playboy philanthropist. Because remember, Bruce Wayne isn't the real guy. Unlike other superheroes where It's who they are. Then they put on the mask and take on this persona of a superhero. That's different with Batman. Remember, Bruce Wayne died. In every real sense, Bruce Wayne died the night his parents were shot, and the Batman was born. The Batman is the real character. Batman is this, or Bruce Wayne is a fake mask that Batman puts on during the day. Batman is who he really is. Bruce Wayne is this fake facade. And so there's really not much to explore with Bruce Wayne other than the playboy, the millionaire playboy, which they've done a lot. I think the one thing I would say that I'd like to see them explore, which is what almost everybody says, but it's true, just go a little bit more into the detective aspect of Batman. We've got the badass Batman, and I want to see a lot of badass Batman. I want to see Batman wrecking some fools in this movie. I do. But on top of that, layer in, I mean, the Christian Slater, the Christian Bale Batman, my wires crossed here. The Christian Bale Batman certainly had some sleuthing, but it was mostly technology that did it, and Lucius Fox did a lot of the hard. Anyway, I would just like to see them delve a little bit more into the detective. You know, as Ra's al Ghul calls him, the detective. I want to see a little bit more aspect of that. I want to see him gathering clues and DNA and deducing problems and things like that, on top of kicking a lot of ass. I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think it can be a both and situation, and I want it to be both and. All right, thanks for that, Joshua. Crashing Coyote writes, one of two. Glad you're into Avatar. How do you feel about the final Zuko, Prince Zuko, and the General with the fire lighting up the black and white? I love the show's choreography. Also, Zuko and Iroh are top 5 characters of TV history. Zuko's character arc is phenomenal. But I must warn you, no spoilers, the end of season 2, which I've already seen, Mako, voice actor of Iroh, passed away. Yeah, we've talked about that several times on the show. From leukemia. So season 3 is a different voice actor, but still great. His last episode in season 2 might make you cry. Also, do you know who does the voice for Fire Lord? Yeah, that's Mark Hamill who does the voice of Fire Lord. I'm not feel about the final Zuko and the General, the fire lighting up the black and white. I'm not quite sure I know which, to be honest with you, Crashing Cutter, I'm not quite sure which one you're talking about. Prince Zuko's story, here's the one, look, I love the character. I really do. My one thing about him though is, and this is true of the show as a whole, the swings are pretty stark. Like, I'm this to next, now I'm this. I mean, it's kind of stark swings back and forth. I like the Iroh character more. I wouldn't say either of them are top 5 all time, but they were probably my 2 favorite characters in the show. I also really started getting into Toph. I don't know why. Toph is a very silly character, but for whatever reason, I just started really digging whenever Toph. I'll be honest with you. I did not want Aang and Katara to end up together. I thought that was, frankly, kind of icky. I didn't want those two ending. I did not ship those two. I was kind of wanting Aang and Toph to end up together, but hey, whatever. It's just me. That being said, yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy, particularly once you got, I like season 1, don't get me wrong. I like season 1, but it's when you get into season 2 and 3 that they really start delving into the deeper mythology and they start connecting all the threads and yeah, General Iroh was my absolute favorite character of the show. I was actually a little bit disappointed that he wasn't used more in the final couple of episodes. I really thought they should have been used that more. The fact that he was the Fire Lord's brother, that his brother usurped him for the throne of the Fire Nation. I thought they kind of skimped out on Iroh a little bit at the end. But anyway, that was just me. All right, let's see here. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, just finished the game, and I know you're not a fan of the work, but it will be a snub if Last of Us doesn't get nominated or win Game of the Year. Well, I mean, it's way too early to say that. There's a lot more games to come out this year. I mean, you can't just go throwing around terms like that when you haven't even played a lot of the games that are coming this year. Anyway, if it does not get nominated or win Game of the Year, as everyone knows, I'm a huge Last of Us guy. I can say This isn't just better. The first one bad adds so much. This isn't just better. The first bad adds so much. Not sure what you were trying to say there, but yeah. Well, the reviews for Last of Us 2 are out now, and they're remarkable. The reviews for Last of Us 2 are out, and they are phenomenal. Which just goes to show, again, remember when the leaks came out a month or so ago for Last of Us 2, and everybody said, this game's gonna suck, and no one's gonna buy it, and this game's gonna suck. And I said, listen, I also do not like what I'm hearing out of the leaks. I don't like what I'm hearing out of the leaks either. But take a damn breath for a second. And, you know, I said this at the time. You guys who watch the show know I said this. I'm like, everybody just take a breath. Because going back to the Endgame example, if we found out a month and a half before Endgame came out, hey, you know what, guys, just found out, here's a leak, and it's totally true. They cut off Thanos' head in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Everybody would have been pissed. Everybody would have been pissed. He's the main bad guy of the entire storyline, and you just kill him in the first 10 minutes? Blah, blah, blah. But of course, we know that they did cut off his head in the first 10 minutes, but then we got a sense of the context of it, and it turned out great. And all I said to people was, look, I get it. What I'm hearing out of the leaks doesn't make me happy either, but we don't know the context. We don't know how the story will flow. Maybe the stuff we're hearing are actually the best things about the game. I didn't know how, but I said maybe it will be, right? Just everybody calm down until the game comes out. And then see for yourself or hear the reviews. And right now again, I haven't played the game yet, but the reviews have been phenomenal. A lot of 5 out of 5s, 10 out of 10s, things like that. And I'm hearing from a lot of people that they totally love the game, so there's that as well. All right. Now, that's all the questions from a few days ago that we need to get caught up on. Let's now move over and start getting to the new questions that you guys sent in. This one comes to us from Curtis Lopez, who writes, Zuko, I thought you were angry at me. Iroh, I was never angry at you. I feared you lost your way. One of the best moments in the entire show. It was a very good moment. Again, my two favorite characters were, of course, General Iroh and Prince Zuko, but their dynamic and their relationship was probably my favorite part of the show. Everything else is great too, don't get me wrong, but that was my favorite part. Ethan Holgate writes, hey, John, when it comes to Naughty Dog games, I'm only familiar with Uncharted and the first Last of Us game, so to me, they can do no wrong, in my opinion. To me, they made great game after great game, and I expect The Last of Us Part 2 to be just as amazing. I can't wait to play it. You know what's funny? I was watching, Ann and I were at a friend's place last night, and we were watching the UFC, because when UFC is on, that's what I'm doing. I'm watching UFC. And every single commercial break, I'm not exaggerating. Every single commercial break for the 4 or 5 hours that the prelims and the main card was on, every single commercial break was a Last of Us spot. I mean, they are pushing this game hard. They dropped a lot of marketing dollars on that last night, like insanely so. And I am very excited to see how this game turns out, man. All right. Let's see here. Well, next up, Anonymous writes, glad you liked Avatar. I understand your reasoning for not liking the tech advance in Legend of Korra, but like Avatar, it gets better and pays off in the end. Keep trying and hope you enjoy. Definitely watch season 2, episodes 7 and 8. The beginning, some great world building. I don't think I will. I've got too much other stuff to watch. So what Anonymous is talking about is I obviously got all the way through Avatar, and within a week, I watched the entire series in a week. And then I thought, ooh, look, because I have CBS All Access. Why Avatar is on Netflix and Legend of Korra is on CBS All Access, I don't know, but whatever. But I have CBS All Access, and I remember finishing watching Avatar, and I was like, man, that was really good. And then I realized, oh my gosh, Legend of Korra is on CBS All Access. I should try Legend of Korra out. I watched 3 episodes and I tapped out. Which is too bad, because I think Korra could be a really cool character, but there's just, I didn't like the new world that they were in. It just didn't feel right for the genre to me. And it just didn't feel interesting. So I kind of gave up on it, but that was me. And to be honest with you, I probably won't go back to it. Just because I have too many other shows and too many other movies that I need to watch. So that's probably that. All right. Anyway, thanks for the input on that, though, Anonymous. All right. Curtis Lopez writes, Favorite and least favorite episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender? Probably, oddly enough, they're probably the same episode. What? John, how can an episode be your favorite and your least favorite? It's the episode that I think was in season 3. It might have been in season 2. But it was the episode where it was basically 4 mini stories. You know, the story of, and they did like a segment of it was the story of the lemur. I can't remember the name of the lemur character now. The little flying animal. The story of the lemur. And then this person's story. And then this person's story. And honestly, I felt like it was a bit of a waste. I understand they used each of the little segments to further our understanding of the overall story that was going on. But generally, I found it a waste. So that was my least favorite episode. However, one of the mini stories was focused on Iroh, on General Iroh. And to me, it is simply the best part of the entire series. So for those, you don't even have to know what The Last Airbender is. There's this character, General Iroh, and he's now he's abandoned his life as a great general of the Fire Nation. He's kind of living and hiding a little bit now, and he's a good man. He's a good old man, old military guy. And it's just this short story, and it's so good. And, you know, there's this part where he's out in the street and he sees a mother with a child, and the child is crying and really upset, and the mother can't calm him down. So Iroh comes walking over and starts singing the child a song. And it's a song about soldier boy, come marching home, soldier boy, come marching home. And it makes the little kid smile. And, you know, Iroh's just there making a kid happy and all this kind of stuff. And the kid then goes away. The mom and the kid go away. And you see this character's going around getting things for a picnic, right? Iroh's going around to different shops getting things for a picnic. And that's when he ran into the little kid and played the little song, soldier boy, marching home, blah, blah, blah. And then you realize at the end of the segment, he's going off to have a picnic by himself to commemorate his dead son who died in war. And I can't remember if it was the anniversary of his son's death, and I can't remember if it was his son's birthday. Either way, he's going off to be alone to have a picnic where he brings out the picture of his son. And then he starts singing the same song that he sang to the little boy. Only now, it's sung a different way. Now, instead of this happy soldier boy come marching home, you know, to the little kid, now he's looking at this picture of his son who died in battle, singing soldier boy come marching home. And as he's singing that, he's tearing and crying. And I'm like, what the fuck? How does this stupid little kid's cartoon do something that is this deep and this emotionally rich and this? I was floored. Like, I was absolutely, completely floored. And so that's why when you ask me what is my least favorite and what is my favorite episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's the same episode. Because a lot of it was just junk. But then they got to that part and is like the best thing they did in the entire show. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, I would recommend watching the entire Avatar: The Last Airbender series just to watch that one moment and watch everything that leads up to it so you have a better understanding of the Iroh character and all that kind of stuff. It just floored me. The storytelling of it. There's just the storytelling of it. I was so floored. Anyway. That's that. Okay, Jesse writes, I don't think Artemis Fowl is a good look for Disney Plus. They need to make sure Disney Plus isn't seen as just a dumping ground for the movies they don't have faith in. True, they do have to be careful. I mean, Artemis Fowl, last I checked, had a 12% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. When they dumped it on Disney Plus, we all said, oh, well, that means out of all the movies they have coming out, they can't release them all because the release schedule is getting too packed. They got to dump one. If they're dumping Artemis Fowl, that tells you something about their faith in Artemis Fowl. And now the reviews are coming out. I haven't watched it yet. I'm probably going to watch it some point today. If for no other reason, I'm a big Kenneth Branagh fan, so it breaks my heart that this is a Kenneth Branagh movie, and apparently it stinks. But yeah, they have to be careful with this because, look, the first original movie that I saw on Disney Plus that they put out exclusively for Disney Plus was that Anna Kendrick movie. I think it was called, what was it called? Noelle, where she plays Santa's daughter and becomes the new Santa Claus. I just don't have enough words to describe how awful that movie is. It's terrible. Terrible. And, you know, I love the people in it. I love Anna Kendrick and I love Billy Eichner. And there's just so many good things there that it should have been a really fun little movie. And it was terrible. So bad. So bad. And now, yeah, then they just dump this on Disney Plus. Yeah, you're right. They have to be careful about this. Listen, Disney Plus is still in its formative period where they're forming what people's perceptions of the network are and all that kind of stuff. So I agree with you, Jesse. They got to be careful about that. They can't just use it as a dumping ground because that reputation will start to become how people see them. So they got to be careful. Because listen, they put out another one or two like that, then my assumption is going to be, even if it's unfair, but my assumption is going to be that, an original Disney Plus movie is coming. It must suck. I'm not saying that's fair, but that's what our assumption is going to be if this happens a few more times. So they do got to be careful. All right. The Joe D writes, hey, John, so how does this work? A guilty pleasure of mine, Adventures in Babysitting. It's currently available on both Disney Plus and HBO Max. Why can't the DC movies also remain on HBO Max while streaming on another platform? Thanks. It all depends on the individual deal of a movie. There are exclusive rights. There are non-exclusive rights. So, for instance, you can... Here's a good example. This is a good way of thinking of it. Let's say you're a YouTuber and you want some music to use in your show. There are a lot of services out there where you can pay a membership fee and you can get a non-exclusive license that you can use a piece of music, copyright free. You don't have to worry about copyright. You don't have to worry about getting a copyright strike or anything like that because you have a license to use that music. However, the license isn't exclusive. It isn't you and only you may use this music on your YouTube channel. You might hear other YouTube videos that might use the same music at some point. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And you might hear somebody else using a piece of music because even though you have the rights to use that music, it's not an exclusive license. Therefore, other people may also have the rights to use it. So when approaching distribution deals, you can do a distribution deal where you have a non-exclusive right to play this show on your network. But we also, as the rights holders, we can also go and give a license to another network somewhere else to also play that same show. Now, that license, a non-exclusive license, isn't as valuable. So you could probably pay a lot cheaper for a non-exclusive license. But then there are going to be networks that say, yeah, we're only going to license your show if you give us the exclusive license to it for a certain period of time. Because while we're playing this movie, whatever this movie is, on Netflix, we want Netflix to be the only place people can watch it. Therefore, we want an exclusive license. That's the more normal way of doing things, but there are also non-exclusive licenses. So I don't know the specifics of the Adventures in Babysitting one. My only assumption can be that there's a non-exclusive license. That one has the license, has a non-exclusive rights to play it for a certain period of time, but it was non-exclusive, which means somebody else can play it as well. Then there are, most circumstances today will be exclusive licenses. Where, hey, if we're going to pay you all this money to play your movie on Netflix, we want Netflix to be the only place that people can watch it. If we're going to pay you all this movie to have this movie, to have your movie on Amazon Prime, then if we're paying you all this money, we want an exclusive rights to play your movie during a certain period of time on Amazon Prime. So that's probably the situation. Again, I don't know the specifics, but I'm just assuming that's probably the situation with something like that. All right, good question, Thee. All right, Half-Ass Podcast writes, for TBT, I don't know what that is. Last night, I watched Alpha Dog for the first time. And oh my God, what a great performances by Emil Hirsch. I did like him in that. Ben Foster, who's always great in everything. Timberlake, was he that good in it? And Anton. Also, watch Foster and Hirsch together again in Lone Survivor. That's right. They were in Lone Survivor together. Any suggestions for a FBF movie tonight? Well, since I have no idea what TBT or FBF is, I have no idea what that is. What's just a good movie to watch tonight? I go back and watch we'll go back to the theme of the movie, of the show today. Black Klansman. If you have not watched Black Klansman, I highly recommend Black Klansman. I don't know why Emil Hirsch isn't still a super prominent actor today. I've always liked him. Even when he's in movies I don't really like Speed Racer. Anyway, even when he's in movies I don't really like, I've always liked him. And Ben Foster is simply the most underrated actor in the movie business today. He is elite. Ben Foster's elite. And most people don't even know his name. And he never gets given the big lead main. I don't know. Ben Foster to me is the most underrated guy in Hollywood right now. Anyway, Glenn Tracy writes, fun movie conspiracy theory. The theory goes that Stanley Kubrick was hired by the government to help fake the moon landing. Oh God, no. Just no. As around the same time he was filming A Space Odyssey and was good at special effects. For agreeing to this, he got the promise that none of his movies can be edited against his will. Fast forward a few years, he has an idea to make Eyes Wide Shut. He was a master of symbolism and apparently tried to reveal to the public how the world is controlled by a few elitists, the theory goes. Warner execs previewed the movie, plus wanted 25 minutes taken out. He refused. Before the movie was released, he dies from a heart attack, plus the 25 minutes got taken out. Don't believe it 100% myself, but I found myself peering down the rabbit hole and thinking, no, that's just nonsense, Glenn. That is just utter ridiculous nonsense. So that's something that flat earthers will come up with. So no, complete utter lunacy. By the way, I like Eyes Wide Shut, and it's not just because it's filled with the filthy. I love filthy. Bring on the filthy. It's not just because it's filled with the filthy. It's a really good movie. I like Eyes Wide Shut an awful lot. But yeah, as far as conspiracy theories go, no, you can just don't even give it any air. Just snuff that out and don't give it any consideration whatsoever. But if for no other reason, I'm really glad you wrote that in just to mention Eyes Wide Shut. Because if you are of the appropriate age and you can handle it, do watch Eyes Wide Shut. It's a good movie. It's more profound. Look, when people think of Eyes Wide Shut, they just think of orgies. Okay, yes, but it's really a good movie, even that aside. So I would highly recommend it. Take Glenn's recommendation on that and do try that one out. But as far as the conspiracy stuff goes, Glenn, pay it no attention, my friend. Pay it no attention. All right. Canadian singing Posty. Oh, speaking of Welsh, who just wrote in recently. Happy anniversary, good sir. 10 years is a wonderful milestone. What was your wedding song? Anne and I, our wedding song, which is still one of my favorite songs in the world. It's a Peter Gabriel song that most people don't know. And it's called Book of Love. The book of love is long and boring. No one can lift the damn thing. Anyway, it is a powerful, wonderful song. I first heard it at a Peter Gabriel concert. Ann and I went to go see Peter Gabriel at the Hollywood Bowl. And the reason I wouldn't have gone normally, I wasn't a big Peter Gabriel fan at the time. I didn't dislike Peter Gabriel. I'm just not like a big Peter Gabriel fan. That's all. But this concert was unique because he wasn't playing with a band. He was playing with a Philharmonic Orchestra. I thought that could be kind of cool. So Ann and I went to go watch this concert of Peter Gabriel doing an all Philharmonic Orchestra thing. And that was the first time I heard his song, Book of Love. Now, I later heard Book of Love again. It was played during what was supposed to be the series finale of Scrubs. I don't know if you guys remember this. This is before it got picked up on another network and it didn't bring over the lead guy. Anyway, the real series finale of Scrubs, they played Book of Love at the end. As the lead character is looking at an imaginary movie screen playing of what his future can hold. And anyway, so Ann and I chose that Book of Love. as our wedding song. It is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's absolutely beautiful, and that was our wedding song. Thank you for asking, man. All right, Mike Thompson writes, happy anniversary, and for goodness sake, enjoy the weekend. We did, thank you very much. We will be fine without an open mic tomorrow, so this was obviously sent out on Friday. Also, if more people could have been like Adrian Monk, the virus would have been wiped out completely within a month, and I cannot remember who Adrian Monk is off the top of my head. So I'm probably going to kick myself later for not, but I'm freezing on it. But anyway, we did have a wonderful weekend in San Diego. Thank you so much for the well wishes, man. I appreciate that, Mike. All right, Jason Bueno writes, hey, John, will you review The Last of Us 2 when it comes out? It all depends. If I'm able to get it the day it comes out and actually have time to play it through, say within the first 2 or 3 days, then I will probably review it. If I can't, then there's no point in me reviewing it. If I can't do it within the week that it comes out, then there's no point. It's the same thing, a philosophy I bring to reviewing movies. If I can't review the movie within a few days of it coming out, then there's no point in me reviewing it. Because no one's interested in watching a review of it now that 500 other reviews have already come out and it's already been out and available for a number of days. So if I can get to it that quickly, and it's just coming out in a few days, if I can get to it that quickly, then yes, I will review it. If I can't get to it quickly, then probably no, I won't. All right, next up, Man of Steel 2 Prayer Warrior writes, how much more Superman do you think we'll see in the Snyder Cut? I mean, unfortunately, he was dead half of the movie. You think they shot that much footage that didn't make the theatrical cut? I fervently pray every single night that they did. I honestly don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if they used just about everything they already had from him and they just decided to add more with him, which means they had to bring him back for reshoots even when he had the mustache. I mean, so maybe they had a bunch of stuff that they had cut out previously. I don't know. But if they're following this, if it's still basically the same story, like they've already said that the Justice League Snyder Cut is not a completely different movie. It's the same story, but it's going to look different because there's going to be a bunch of stuff in it that we didn't see in the original. But if it follows the same story, I don't see how much more Superman you can put into it. I mean, he's dead for a good chunk of that movie before they bring him back. And then once he does come back, he's in it a lot. So I'm not sure. I'm not leaning either way. I'm not leaning that no, they won't. I'm not leaning yes, they will. I really don't know. But I will say this. Since there's more of the movie coming, I got to assume that means we're going to get more of everything. I assume that means we're going to get, to some degree, more Wonder Woman, to some degree, more Batman, to some degree, more Cyborg, to some degree, more Flash, and yes, to some degree, more Superman. How much more, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But that's going to be one of the interesting things for us to keep an eye on once we go into the film. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, I'm going to the original Psycho at my local art house. Nice. Art house movie theater later today. The mainstream movie theaters are still closed, even though they can reopen here in Florida. Yeah, listen, there are a lot of places in the country now where movie theaters can be open. So some smaller ones are, but the major chains, it's a bigger deal for them to reopen. And so they're going to open when they feel that they're ready to open. So even though like AMC could open in a lot of places if they wanted to today, they're not ready to reopen. So they're saying they're probably going to be reopened in July. Regal has already said they will be reopened. They will have their theaters reopened by the time July 17th hits. Cinemark has already started to slowly roll them out. But yeah, it's going to be a slow rollout for some of these bigger ones. But I'm glad you got a theater open near you, and I'm glad you're taking advantage of it to go watch a classic like that. That is awesome. Well done, sir. All right, next up. I tried my best, writes John, check out Be Water. That's the Bruce Lee 30 for 30 documentary. Believe me, I just have to finish one or two more things. And then I am absolutely watching Be Water. I've been thrilled. I've been excited about that since they announced they were doing it, because 30 for 30 does a great job on their stuff. Anyway, a documentary on ESPN. Bruce was a warrior with a great heart. The way America/Hollywood treated him is how America treats us as black people. Bruce Lee versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Who do you got? I think Bruce Lee would adapt and beat him. Oh, no chance. No chance in the world. No chance in the world Bruce Lee could beat Khabib. No way. Look, it's just the same thing as the evolution of athletes over time, right? Like, let's look at a thing like sprinting, 100-meter dash, right? I don't care. You go back to the 60s and 70s and get the fastest man on earth. He won't finish in the top 10 today. Every racer today, because the sports evolve, training techniques evolve. Athletes of today learn from the lessons of the athletes from the previous day. So they build upon that and improve upon that. So today, you know, you go to the Olympics, the 100-meter dash, the guy coming in last place is running faster than the fastest person who ran in the 1960s or 70s. That's just the way it is. You know, same today. Like it's always a challenge to pull hockey players from different eras. But like one of the greatest hockey players of all time, Gordie Howe, right? You have to compare them and how they stacked up against their contemporaries. Fact of the matter is, Gordie Howe did not have the skill set that a Sidney Crosby has. He just doesn't. He just didn't. Because as each generation of athlete comes along, they build upon the successes of the athletes before them in terms of technique, training methods, all that kind of stuff. And so they get better and better and better. And whereas maybe Bruce Lee would have been great at the time, absolutely. Just like a Gordie Howe, just like a Mickey Mantle, just like anybody you can mention. But if you just went back in time and plucked Bruce Lee out of his time and then fast forward him in a time machine to today and just dropped him into a cage with Khabib Nurmagomedov, Khabib's going to destroy him. Now, Bruce maybe have been further ahead of his contemporaries than Khabib is, maybe, but no, you can't take athletes from like the 60s and think that they can compare against athletes today in a apples to apples comparison. I just don't think you can do that. So no, as great as he was, he could not beat Khabib. No, he just couldn't, because Khabib had the benefits of 2 or 3 generations of learning from the lessons of those combat artists before him. So it's an unfair advantage. It's a totally unfair advantage, but it is what it is. So anyway, that's just my thought on that. Okay, let's see. But I am dying to see that documentary. I've been dying to see that. Be water, my friend. All right, Amir writes, just FYI, last year, me and my wife went to the Maldives, and while she enjoyed the sun, sea, and sand, I spent some of my time indoors watching your show. Wise man, Amir, watching your show. Anyway, now anytime I mention I'm watching the John Campea Show, she retorts, oh, he came on the holiday with us too. Good man. Good man. You know what's funny? It's funny because I read that and you say, I'm watching it while I was on vacation. The crazy thing is, Amir is also the name of mine and Ann's real estate agent. Our real estate agent, his name's Amir. He's a really cool guy. I like him very much. He's trying to help us find a place to live, which I always like. So yes, this is good on you, Amir, for having your priorities straight. Have your priorities straight. John Campea Show first, marriage second. I think everybody will be a lot happier if they just adopted that philosophy of life. Well done, sir. And I look forward to hearing about your adventures surfing on different friends' couches moving forward. All right, next up is, where do we go here? Next up is D.A. Miller, who writes, hey, John, back in 1986, Valerie Harper was the title role of Valerie, starring a young Jason Bateman. After contract objections, she left the show a little into season 2 that continued on as the Hogan Family. I forgot all about that. I mean, it's a little... I was like 12 when that show was on. Well, whatever. I just remembered that watching your show. Yeah, because one of the topics that's come up lately is the whole thing about, Batwoman just lost their lead actress, right? Ruby Rose has left Batwoman. And I remember saying, I don't know that I can think of another time when the title character of a show leaves the show after one season and that show continues on and stays successful. That's interesting. I guess, you know what? Maybe a modern example, although it doesn't really count because Roseanne was obviously around, but in the relaunch of Roseanne, I think Roseanne was around for like less than one season, then she was gone from controversial stuff, but she was gone and then they continued on as the Connors. So I guess that's one example, but that doesn't really count because Roseanne wasn't a new show. It was a relaunch of it, but it wasn't a new show. So maybe that one doesn't count. I got to look at it. But even then, if Valerie got into season 2, then it doesn't count. But that is a good comparison. If that's true, D.A. Miller, that's a good comparison. Good detective work there. All right, next up. James Argento writes, I am all for Miles as a live-action Spider-Man, but I don't think they should copy the comic story and kill Peter Parker. They can have a high school Miles with his uncle, played by Donald Glover, and a 20-something Parker, and have the best of both worlds. Here's the thing. I do not think, and I have nothing to back this up with. This is just my speculation on this. I don't think there's any chance that we see Miles Morales Spider-Man in the MCU. I don't think there's any possibility of that. What if there is a possibility, the thing that I think there's a chance for is that Sony, barring whatever the specifics of the contract between Marvel and Sony is at the moment, because there could be stuff in the contract that totally blocks this too, but I'm just saying, that aside, if that's not a consideration, I think there's a legit chance Sony could be looking at doing their own Miles in their Sony Venomverse. I don't know that for sure, but what I don't expect is to see a Miles Morales Spider-Man running around the MCU. I don't expect we're going to see that. I don't think that's going to be there at all. All right, next up, Willow writes, happy belated anniversary to you and Ann. Thank you so much, Willow. I know this is a movie talk channel, but if you have one piece of advice for being in a successful relationship, what would it be? Honestly, this is going to sound trite, but nobody does it. I find so many of my friends in relationships, they don't do this. And it is the most common piece of advice you always hear, but it's communicate. Even when it's hard, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels like you're just repeating yourself 1,000 times, communicate. Anne and I don't let awkward moments just happen. You know, if there's ever something that is remotely off, we stop what we're doing, we talk. Sometimes a talk will lead to a fight. That happens in relationships. I mean, that happens, but I find a lot of people just won't communicate because they want to avoid a fight. You know, Ann and I, honestly, in 10 years of marriage, I think Ann and I, in 10 years, have had maybe 4 arguments that got us to the point that we were raising our voices at each other in 10 years. But you got to embrace that. I am no relationship expert. Just take what I say with a grain of salt. I am no relationship I'm the worst guy in the world. I'm just giving my thought that I've learned from my own failures, which is you got to be willing to do that. Embrace the argument, embrace the fight, because then you're communicating and you can come out on the other side of it. But it's always, never let things go. What I don't mean like, oh yeah, she took the last cookie, don't let it go. No, let that. But I mean, if something is off, don't ignore it. Don't let it go. Sit down. Say, hey, can we chat? Let's chat about this. Let's talk about this. Ann and I, like, we're always talking and communicating through our mistakes, through our blunders, through everything else. We communicate. And listen, like every relationship in the world, our relationship has faced challenges. Like every relationship does. And like every relationship, our relationship has faced some serious challenges, just like everybody else. But I think the thing that has always got us through better and stronger than the other side is that we communicate. We just, something's off. One of us is mad. One of us is feeling right. Something's going on. Well, we talk it through and then we instantly get back to our center. So my best advice to everybody, talk to each other. Even when it's uncomfortable, even whatever. Just talk to each other. Let's see here. Let's move on. Where did we go? That was Willow. Thank you for that, Willow. Next up is Froggy Matt, who writes, hey, John, do you think adult animated movies can be made nowadays that will have the appeal like when the movie Heavy Metal came out? Heavy Metal was... here's the funny thing about Heavy Metal, and Heavy Metal gets brought up a lot. Let me bring up something here. Heavy Metal wasn't that popular. I mean, everybody knew about it because it was kind of a weird thing. Like, it was a very mature, that side of mature kind of stuff that they did at the time. I'm just trying to remember who directed it. Oh, that's why I didn't remember it all, because it's like 10 directors were on it. But I don't honestly. Well, everybody talked about it because of the nature of it. It wasn't actually all that popular. Let me just go over for a second and look up the box office results. Heavy Metal made a grand total of worldwide $546,000. $546,000 is what it made. Now, of course, it had a bigger life on home video. Apparently, it talks of could have made around $20 million, and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it wasn't that bad. But look, back to your basic question: could an adult theme animated thing have a big impact? Well, I think the answer to that question is just look at television today. There's a lot of very mature adult R-rated, animated stuff on television now. And I think, and some of it can be very successful. So yeah, I think you could, if you came up with the right animated thing that was R-rated, targeted specifically at adults. But then again, it's just like any movie. That's like asking, hey, John, could a private detective movie be successful? Well, yes, it could be. But it also has to be a remarkably great movie in order to do that. So yes, I believe an adult-themed, R-rated, animated film could be a huge, cultural event kind of movie. But it has to do the work of actually being a great movie. And that's the hard part. It's easy to come up with concepts. It's hard to actually make it that great of a movie. So could it? Yeah, I don't think it's excluded, because just look at what we're getting on TV today. Anyway, thanks for that, Froggy. Jesse writes, are we sure Spider-Man Miles Morales is a game? It shows the new PlayStation Studios logo before the teaser, which is their new movie/TV production division, right? I could be completely wrong, but could this be a short film TV show? No, we would have heard about that a long time ago. And plus, they wouldn't have showed it off as a part of a PS5 presentation for a show. So I see where your thoughts coming from on that, Jesse. I do. But I really think it's pretty clearly, yes, this is a game they're talking about. This is absolutely a game they're talking about. All right. Cody Link writes, like you, John, I did not really enjoy The Legend of Korra. Now, granted, remember, I only saw 3 episodes. Right? So when I'm saying I didn't like it, remember, I'm saying that within the limited context of I only saw 3 episodes. I just didn't like what I saw. That's all. I did not really enjoy The Legend of Korra. There are a few highlight episodes, though, that I think you'd enjoy. Being parts 1 and part 2, there are some of my favorites of either series. They show the story of the first Avatar. I've heard a few people saying that. Also, I've heard people telling me that in Legend of Korra, there are flashbacks to adult Aang, Avatar Aang, who is, of course, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, he's just a little kid. But some people have told me that, and I don't know if this is true or not, some people have told me that in Legend of Korra, there are flashbacks to an adult Aang. That fascinates me. I'm interested about that. So, I don't know. I don't know. I said earlier in the show, I don't think I'm going to go back in and watch it again. You never know. I might be sitting around one night while Ann is at a dance class or something. I'll be like, well, I got an hour and a half to kill. Maybe I'll pop on Legend of Korra. I don't know. Maybe I will. We'll see. All right. H. James 78 writes, hey, John, I just got an email from Quibi saying that you can now watch it on a TV via Chromecast. I don't think it would have survived by just being on for phones. The idea of it just being that it was always stupid. Yeah. So what happened was the other day we were talking about Quibi, which, listen, I think the idea of Quibi is a neat idea. An entire network based on short form content, like where every episode or thing you watch is, I think, 10 minutes. I think that's what they said. The idea of an entire network dedicated to short form content, that's an interesting idea. I never knew if that could work or not, but it's an interesting idea. I always had serious doubts that it would actually catch on. Then they launched, had a miserable launch. Then you find out it's not even, you can't even watch it on your television. It's only meant for mobile devices, which I don't think excluding it to mobile devices does anything to increase the appeal of it. But the idea that you can cast it to a Chromecast, that's interesting, but you still need your mobile device to do it. They need to make a Quibi app available on Apple TV, on Roku, on the Amazon Fire Stick, on the NVIDIA Shield, whatever it is your streaming device is, smart TVs, what have you. But even then, I don't think it's enough. I just didn't see anything about Quibi to appeal to me. But again, Chromecast is a neat device. I use a Chromecast on my gaming table, so we can just go from our phones or our laptops and immediately cast it right to because I have a gaming table that has a 65-inch TV in the table. So we play our role-playing games on this table. I've shown you pictures of it before. It's like my favorite thing that I own. But you sit around the table, and then it's got the 65-inch TV that's in the middle of it. And so the Game Master can also project pictures and images and video and move things around right on the table so you see it on the screen. And we use a Chromecast to do that. Chromecasts are very, very Swiss Army knife devices. They can do a lot. But I don't think that really counts. So I don't know. I just don't see Quibi surviving. I don't see Quibi surviving. And again, I'm not making any commentary on how good or bad I think their content is, because I don't watch their content. It's just it's never done anything to get me to want to check it out. You know what I mean? And not a lot of people have checked it out. And I'm not hearing rave reviews about it. So I just don't think Quibi can survive. Again, I thought it was an interesting idea, just one I didn't think would work. All right, next up, Damo Davies writes, sorry to take up all your time. That's perfectly fine, dude. But I would like to rank my 5 favorite British directors. The Scott brothers, Ridley and Tony. R.I.P. Tony, Danny Boyle, Christopher Nolan, and of course the GOAT British director is Alfred Hitchcock. How would you rank my list? I stay out of rankings. I generally stay out of rankings, so I'm not going to rank your list, other than say those are all great directors. Those are all great directors. So, I mean, yes, particularly the Scott brothers, which is really neat. You know, it's funny, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about Tony Scott because Top Gun came up. And a lot of people don't even realize that Tony Scott and Ridley Scott were brothers. A lot of people still don't realize that. So I like the fact that you put that in there, Damo. Good one, man. All right. Damo also writes, how devastating is the ending monologue by Vanessa Redgrave's Brioni in the 2007 film Atonement? Having never read the book, this ending devastated me and took days to get over. Big man tears. I don't care who knows it. Atonement is great. You got Professor X, James, James, why am I freezing on Professor X's name? James, he was in Split, McAvoy. Thank you. James McAvoy. So you got James McAvoy, you got Keira Knightley, you got Saoirse Ronan, plays the younger version of that character. I like Atonement very much, but it's been over 12 years since I've seen it. To be honest with you, it's been over 12 years since I've seen it, and I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember the ending. I remember the movie. I remember liking the movie very much. But I cannot remember. I can't remember the ending. Again, this is what happens when you watch like 500 movies a year, and it's supposed 12 years ago. I honestly cannot remember the ending, unfortunately. But I'm glad you brought up Atonement. Listen, Atonement is a period piece. And period pieces to a lot of people is like a dirty phrase. Oh, period piece. Just like subtitled. Oh, foreign subtitled. Like some people just have like an almost allergic reaction against it. But Atonement's really good. I'm trying to remember the exact last scene and I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, I'm glad you brought up the movie itself though, Damo. All right, next up. We've got, Damo also writes, I know you aren't a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and its spinoff, but for me, this sealed the deal when people were saying, Joss who? When he was announced, he was helming the Avengers movie. This show and its spinoff redefined fantasy television. I don't know if Buffy redefined fantasy television. Don't get me wrong, I didn't dislike Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I didn't dislike it. Well, I disliked the movie, but the television show, I didn't dislike the television show. I'm actually just a bigger fan of its spin-off show, Angel. I actually was a much bigger Angel fan than I was a Buffy fan, which gets, when I say that, man, I get the dirtiest looks from people. Oh my God, the dirty looks I get from people when I mention, I actually prefer Angel over Buffy the Vampire Slayer. People look at me like, what? I mean, I know, I know. But yeah, I mean, that was part of the big excitement when people found, because it wasn't just that, it was also Firefly. So when it got announced that Whedon was doing the Avengers movie, a lot of people got very, very excited. And again, I think Avengers is the greatest comic book movie of all time and probably the most important comic book movie of all time. We would not have the golden age of comic books. We would not have the MCU as it exists today if Joss Whedon did not crush Avengers. MCU would be a totally different thing today if it wasn't for that Avengers movie. But that's my take on that at any rate. All right, Ben Rayner writes, "Hey, John, hope you and Ann have a nice holiday, even if it was short." We did. Thank you very much. I've been watching a bunch of Clint Eastwood movies. A lot of people are. During the pandemic lockdown, a lot of people have been going back to watch the old Clint Eastwood movies, which is terrific. And particularly his Westerns. Question: do you think if he came out with a new one today, would it get people in theaters? Would you see a new Eastwood Western? I'll watch anything by Eastwood. Look, Eastwood isn't a one-trick pony. You know, $1 Million Baby was not a Western. And it's like one of the most powerful films you can watch. It's absolutely incredible. Mystic River is not a Western, but it's like one of the most powerful films you can watch. Clint Eastwood is not a one-genre pony. Now, yes, he did star in some of the most iconic Westerns of all time. And in my opinion, he directed the greatest Western of all time in Unforgiven. But he is far more than Westerns. Now, if he did a new Western today, would people flock out to theaters to see it? Well, it all depends on if it looked any good. You'll get a segment of people that are just like Clint Eastwood directing a Western. That'll be good enough for some people. But a lot of the rest of the audience is going to be like any other movie. It's just going to be, does it look good? Is word of mouth positive about it? Are the critic ratings high? Do the trailers look interesting? So yes, there will be some people like me that'll just be foaming at the mouth of a Clint Eastwood directed Western, for sure. But again, would it make people flock to theaters? Well, it still has to pass the same standard tests that every movie has to pass, which is, does it look interesting? Does it look good? Does the marketing campaign get people excited? Is the word of mouth good? It's still got to pass all that. So there's no automatics, but it certainly would get certain people excited about it, Ben. Absolutely. All right. Marie Seifring writes, Deadline is reporting that Tenet's release has been delayed until July 31st, 2 weeks, and that Inception will be released on July 17th instead, with COVID-19 cases still rising in many places. Do you think Tenet will keep its new date? Yes. If there was any doubt, they would have pushed the release date for Tenet further off. I completely believe that them only moving it by 2 weeks, that tells me, okay, we're completely sure about that date. It also tells me that I believe the reason they're doing it is to give, like we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, is to give movie theaters and the public a little bit more time to get back into the habit of going to the theaters, to let word of mouth spread that, hey, the theaters are open again, to get people built back up so that when Tenet comes out, maybe not everybody, but a good amount of the people in the movie-going audience are already back into the idea, either knowing that the theaters are open or have gotten back into the theaters themselves once or twice before Tenet releases. I completely believe that's the case. If there was any doubt in Warner Brothers' mind, I think they would have instantly pushed it off to November, December, maybe March of 2021. But they didn't. They just bumped it 2 weeks because they just wanted a little bit of extra time for other movies, you know, classics, whatever, to play in theaters, get people back in the idea of going, release Inception. You know, it's a great idea. And yeah, so I think, yes, even with COVID-19 cases raising in some places, I still think it's going to release. And listen, I was just in San Diego. Let me see if I can bring up this picture. I'm not 100% sure I can, but let me try to bring up this picture if I can. So, Ann and I, of course, went to San Diego for the weekend. Let me see if I can bring this up. I don't know if this is going to do it justice by bringing this up, but I'm going to try here. Okay, this is a picture I took, and you really can't get the full thing of it here. But we were in downtown San Diego because, you know, they just allowed restaurants to reopen and whatever. Everything was packed. Like packed with a capital P. We were walking down in Gaslamp and the sidewalks were full and every restaurant was full and had people waiting outside to get in and all this kind of stuff. Listen, I've been telling people for a long time now, there are absolutely, understandably so, going to be a segment of the audience that is not ready to go back to the movie theaters as soon as they open up. That's completely reasonable. Nothing wrong with that. But I also believe that you cannot underestimate that there's going to be a lot of other people who, after 3 months in lockdown, are itching to get back to something that feels normal. I'm not saying whether that's smart or dumb. That's a different conversation. Whether that's smart or dumb, that's a different conversation. But what I'm saying is you cannot underestimate the fact that there are a lot of people who are itching to get out and do the quote unquote normal things again. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it is far more risky to go into a place like, to go into a packed, crowded restaurant with a low ceiling and like everybody, like that's way more risky than going into a movie theater. That's way more risky. And yet, every single thing in the Gaslamp that was open was packed. Because people just want to get out, man. People wanted to get out. They want to get out. They want to go back to doing the things that are normal. Again, we can have the debate and the discussion another time about whether or not that's smart or dumb, but it is what it is. And so that's why I feel, listen, I think people are really underestimating when Tenet opens. I think you're going to see a lot of people want to go back to the movie theater. There's going to be a lot of people who feel like, nope, not me, not yet. And that's perfectly reasonable. But that doesn't change the fact that there are going to be a lot of other people that are like, yeah, man, if you take the right precautions and take the right steps and the theaters have the right procedures in place, I think we're pretty safe. Nothing's going to be 100% safe. Not going to a restaurant, not going to a grocery store, not going to a movie theater. Nothing's going to be 100% safe. But are they doing enough things to minimize the risk? And if so, I think you're going to see a lot of people going out. Again, maybe that's dumb, maybe that's smart. But it is what it is. You're going to see a lot of people going out. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Marie. All right, next up. What do we got here? Next up is Static Space Sean, who writes, I was watching Batman vs. Superman on HBO Max, and they cut out 10 seconds at the end of the warehouse scene where Batman walks over and broods over the last guy remaining. Normally, I wouldn't care about 10 seconds, but that really bothered me. It was my favorite part of the movie. I don't understand what that accomplishes. To me, that 10 seconds is the complete character summary of what this Batman was. Can you explain why they would do this? Thanks. Well, I can't, because I can't confirm that that's true. I don't know if maybe you just had something skip. I don't know if you just perceived it wrong. I can't speak to that because I haven't seen it. I can tell you this. I haven't heard any reports from anybody else saying that they cut some stuff out of that version. I've heard no reports of that. That doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean you're not right. I'm just saying until I know more, it could be anything from a glitch in the stream to what I just don't know. I just don't know. If any of you guys do know of this and know this is a confirmed thing, can you email me a link to something? Like a link to a report or something like that to john@thejohncampeashow.com. Just email me that. I would love to see it. And maybe if that's true, if that's verified, and it's not just something that was a phenomena, some unique, weird fluke phenomena that you had, Static Space, then maybe we'll make that a topic on the John Campea Show on Monday. Which, by the way, the John Campea Show on Monday is going to be kind of fun. It's going to be the first time I have two people in studio at the same time. In a long time. It's going to be me, Robert, and Aaron. And I love getting the three of us together in the room. So Monday's show should be kind of fun. But at any rate, please do send me that because, again, I can't go into it too much. Why would they do that when I'm not even sure if they did that or not? But please, guys, if you know something, have an official report to it, email it to me. I'd like to see it. And then maybe we'll talk a little about that a little bit more on Then Static. Otherwise, maybe it was just some kind of fluky glitch on your stream or whatever. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. But once I know more, then I can give some commentary on it. Thanks for sharing that, though. I had never heard anything about this, and you just put that on my radar. So I appreciate that, Static. All right, next up. B. Wayne, New York writes, Hey, John, hope you had a great weekend with your lovely wife. I did, thank you very much. So just heard they moved the dates back for Wonder Woman and Tenet. Also, I recently heard a stunt coordinator interview about the new Mad Max movie he's working on in Australia. Your thoughts? Listen, we've been talking for a while that George Miller has reached an agreement with Warner Brothers that they can make a new Mad Max thing. So a lot of work. I have not heard any official green light, though, that's been made. But a lot of work gets done on movies before final green lights get given. A lot of pre-production, that includes concept artists, that includes obviously writing, that includes some stunt people trying to figure out, hey, if we did this, how would we do this? And like all that stuff goes into it. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and say it's officially been greenlit. It's not, but we've known for a while that they are looking at developing that and starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So how far ahead they are or not, we don't know. I do know this. I don't like the concept. I'm not against it, but I don't like the concept of doing a prequel of Furiosa. To me, if you're going to do Furiosa, do Furiosa. Do it with Charlize Theron. Don't do a thing, oh, here's the young version of but you know me, I'm not really big on prequels in general. But who knows? It could be brilliant. It could be fantastic. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Next, thanks for that, B. Wayne. Next up, Isaac Beebe writes, my TV show recommendation to you and everyone else is Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt, which is my buddy Ryan's favorite TV stars, Jennifer Love Hewitt. He's crazy about her. It's about a regular woman who just got married, lives in a small town, and runs an antique shop, but her secret is that she can see and speak to ghosts. Not the most original sounding thing. I think we've seen shows and movies use that concept before, but it is Jennifer Love Hewitt. Actually, I was telling the story the other day that a buddy of mine is completely gaga over Jennifer Love Hewitt. And so the first time I ever used Cameo was I used it to get Jennifer Love Hewitt to send my buddy Ryan a message, and made his day because it was Jennifer Love Hewitt. Totally made his day that he got this message from Jennifer Love Hewitt. Totally made his day. She's adorable, by the way. But I haven't heard many people talk about it. I have seen marketing for Ghost Whisperer, but I've never heard anybody talk about it. You are officially, Isaac, the first person to ever write in and tell me about it on the show. So thank you for that. All right. Just a couple more, guys, and then I'm going to take a quick 2 or 3 minute break here so I can refill, rest the vocal cords, refill the drink, stretch my legs a little bit. Django19 writes, do you think they launched HBO Max prematurely just to get people to subscribe, knowing they won't have the same attention in a month when they lose their popular movies? If they waited, it could have been more smoother launch and been on Roku, more like HBO minimum. Haha. Yeah, you know what? Seriously, that's the shady thing about it. Look, let me just be clear about my thoughts on HBO Max. I think HBO Max is going to be fantastic. I also don't think HBO Max is fantastic yet, but I think it's going to be fantastic. But they totally botched their launch. And yes, Django, I do think that part of the reason they launched early was so they could make as part of their marketing, ooh, the Oscar-nominated Black Klansman, ooh, your favorite DC movies, Wonder Woman and Batman versus Superman and all this and blah, blah, blah. They could, because I just saw an HBO Max ad last night and they're marketing Black Klansman and Wonder Woman and Batman versus Superman. It was all part of the big marketing push. But they knew that those movies were leaving the platform to fulfill other licensing agreements, to go on other streamers for I don't know how long. Maybe it'll be 6 months. Maybe it'll be 6 years. I don't know yet. None of us know. But yeah, I think that was part of it. Because if they launched later, they couldn't have used those big title movies as a part of their marketing to entice people to sign up. And they certainly didn't tell people, hey, come watch Wonder Woman, Batman versus Superman. Only for a few weeks before we take it off the network, though. Yeah, come on. They didn't tell anybody that. They just said, look, we've got these big movies, everybody. Isn't that great? And then full knowing that they're just going to be gone in a month. Yeah, I even think it was a little shady. I think it was kind of shady of them to pull that. And again, I think HBO Max will be fantastic. But at the same time, I do 100% believe that was shady that they did that. All right, last question we're going to take, and then we're going to take a short little break. Django19 writes, 6 more days till The Last of Us 2, and I am so hyped. I've never gotten a collector's edition game, but I had to for this one. It comes with a steelbook, a 12-inch Ellie statue, and more. Also got the limited edition controller and headset. Will you buy the game? Yeah, I'm going to buy the game. I hardly touch my PS4 console. God, I play a lot more of my Nintendo Switch than I do my PS4. I have a PS4 Pro. I hardly ever touch it. Very rarely touch it. But I'm going to get Last of Us 2. I am definitely going to get that and try to make my way through the game. I'm going to suck at. Of course, I'm going to suck at. I cannot use console controllers to save my life. I am a complete keyboard and mouse guy. I got to play almost all the games that I play on PC. But I am going to try to get, I'm going to get it. I'm going to try it, and hearing all the reviews for it being as solid and stellar as they are, it makes me extra excited to try it out. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to take a short break here, like 2 or 3 minutes, not long. Just give me a chance to stretch my legs, rest my voice for a second, go refill my drink, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom. So hang tight with me, guys. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back. See you in just a minute. Guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. Now let's dive right back in to your live questions. We're going to start things off here with Django, who writes, oh no, that was Django we got to last there. Yes, very much looking for Last of Us 2. Dex Star writes, hey all, hope all is well. So I don't mean to sound like a snobby movie fan, but what's the most ignorant thing you've heard in a theater? For me, it was Super 8. Why does everyone look like they're from the 70s? And Jurassic World ending, what? Are there 2 T-Rexes? I don't know. Look, I think anybody... Listen, I'm one of these people that I don't mind people talking in theaters as long as it's brief and they try, you can tell they're making an effort to not be disturbing to each other. Like, I don't mind when somebody in front of me, like something happens in a movie and leans over to their friend and goes, hey, that reminds me of when Bill did that one thing. You know, if it clearly looks like to me, they want to say something to the person they're with, but they're trying to make sure that they're not too disturbing to people around them. And it doesn't happen every 5 minutes, but 3 or 4 times through the movie, hey, did you notice that one part where the car looks like it's the same car from that one movie? Like that little stuff, I don't mind that. That's cool. No, seriously, as long as it looks like to me that you're making an effort to not be disturbing to the people around you and you don't do it often, I'm okay with that. I honestly am. I'm totally okay with that. But it's whenever somebody thinks that the people who bought the movie tickets and paid money to come into the theater came to hear you. It's that guy in the back who's convinced he's the most hilarious guy in the world and has to shout something out every half hour of the movie. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't go in there. Like, I don't mind when like it happens once every 4 or 5 times I go to movies, somebody yells one thing out that's actually kind of funny, whatever. But it's like, we've all been there, right? Where some idiot is like, oh, that's what you get, right? And then again, 15 minutes later, yells something else out again because he thinks everybody wants to hear him. It's like, I just want to grab them by the throat and said, nobody came here to hear you. Shut up. Anyway, so it's almost anything that's like that. I can't think of any one particular phrase. I do remember my favorite one, though, was when the credits to a movie started to play. It was Battlefield Earth, which is one of the worst movies ever made in history. It was Battlefield Earth. And at the end, as the credits started to roll, everybody was paralyzed from shock of just how bad the movie was. Nobody was moving to get up and leave. And the credits have been rolling for a few seconds, and it was dead quiet in the theater, and all you hear is some guy at the front yell, what the hell was that? And I remember that made me howl my head off. But yeah, anytime somebody in a movie theater thinks now granted, I'm lucky. I've only ever seen that happen like once or twice a year. But that does annoy me when somebody thinks that everybody paid their money to come and hear them give commentary through the movie. That to me is the ignorant stuff, Dex. All right. Next up, 50 Shades of Geek writes, another good example of a movie where a guy likes a girl who has a boyfriend who's a nice guy is Venom. Yeah, that's a good example. We've been talking a lot lately about one of my biggest pet peeves in movies is 95% of the time when the hero likes a girl and the girl already has a husband or boyfriend, 95% of the time the husband or boyfriend is made out to be an asshole. So therefore, it's perfectly fine that our hero is trying to steal some other guy's girlfriend or some other guy's wife. It's perfectly fine because the guy's an asshole. But once in a while, 5% of the time, and you're right, Venom is a good example of where the current boyfriend is actually a really good guy. That's a good example of 150 Shades. All right, Diamond Dog's Puppy writes, good day, John. Good day, Diamond Dog. Underrated film for today is 1998's A Simple Plan, directed by Sam Raimi and starring Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton. Cold, bleak, and suspenseful thriller that does not get, I lost my spot. Cold, bleak, and suspenseful thriller that does not get much love as one of the best of the genre of the 90s. Thoughts? I don't know if I would say, by the way, Bridget Fonda was in that too. Bridget Fonda. Okay, side note, but Bridget Fonda, there's a window there for a couple of years where it looked like Bridget Fonda could be the next truly biggest female movie star in the world. I'm not saying she was there. I'm just saying there was a window of a couple of years where it looked like she could become that, and then for whatever reason just kind of disappeared. And I really liked her in that movie as well. Anyway, a classic story about, hey, when money gets involved, even friends get suspicious of each other. Anyway, good movie. I like it. I don't know that I would personally call it one of the best of the genre in the 90s. But it's a good one. And you're right, we don't talk about it much. But if you're looking for a good one, you know what? I totally forgot Sam Raimi directed it. But if you're looking for a good movie to watch tonight, and maybe one that's been off your radar, A Simple Plan is actually a pretty good one. And of course, you got the late great Bill Paxton in there as well. So that's a nice recommendation, Diamond Dog. I like that one. Well done. All right, next up. Diamond Dog also writes, "Hey John, on the parallel side of today's overrated film is the 2000s Memento. Oh, Nolan, Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, Joe Panettiere. I always mispronounce the last name. How could I not enjoy it? I had no emotional attachment to any of the characters. Nice concept, but could never watch it again. Thoughts?" Memento is probably my third favorite Christopher Nolan film. My favorite is Insomnia. My second favorite is The Dark Knight. My third favorite is probably Memento. I love Memento. I think that movie is brilliant in its execution, and the whole concept of the movie is great. Not like it's a lot of times when movies try to tell non-linear storytelling in their movies, quite often it doesn't really work all that well. But this is an example where it works brilliantly and beautifully, and everything just flowed well, which is difficult. And it's the movie that got Christopher Nolan the gig for Batman. It was Memento and his work on Memento that got him the work on Batman. So, hey man, all film is subjective. Just because a movie works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But since you're asking, I will tell you I disagree about Memento. Like, I personally loved it. But listen, there's a lot of movies that tons of people love that will not work for you and will not work for me, because every movie hits us each differently. And so don't feel bad. If Memento was one of those films that just didn't work for you, then it didn't work for you. No problem. But since you're asking me, I will tell you that I disagree, because I personally think Memento is brilliant. But that's just me. All right. Luke1234 writes, "Hey, John, I was curious with what's going on in Seattle with CHAZ. I have no idea what that is. Does that make you or Ann nervous about moving there?" Well, again, since I have no idea what CHAZ is, I can't respond. Since I have no idea what it is we're talking about, I can't say. Again, Ann and I are still quite a ways away from moving to Seattle. Like, what are we in? June, July, August, September? At minimum, it's going to be another 4 months until we do. Minimum, it's going to be another 4 months till we move to Seattle. So, but since I don't know what CHAZ is, I can't comment. Guys, please remember, try not to use acronyms when you're like, actually tell me what it is you're talking about, even if you're talking about movies, because sometimes what happens on the show is I look at it and I don't instantly know what it is. I'm like, now I can't answer the question because I don't know what it is we're talking about. I try my best, but just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. All right. Thanks for writing in anyway, Luke. All right. Anonymous writes, "Universal screws drive-in theaters by declaring The King of Staten Island VOD only days before the premiere. Even got Judd Apatow to tweet it was always VOD only, which is of course not true. I basically grew up at the drive-in theater and worked 10 plus years, so I take this personally." Well, I mean, look, they've got to do, the normal rules right now of theatrical, whether it's, a brick and mortar theater or a drive-in theater, whatever, the normal rules of theatrical windows and theatrical agreements are really not in play right now. Right? We're in a very unique, weird, odd situation with the whole pandemic and theaters being closed and blah, 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 blah. And right now, all the theaters and all the studios are just doing what they think is best for their projects to survive. It's a terrible situation that's affecting everybody. And so that's why, like, even when Trolls World Tour decided to pull out of theaters and just go straight to VOD, the problem wasn't that they decided to do that, because, it's the circumstances we're in. The reason the theaters had a problem with it is because Universal, being a supposed partner of the theaters, never even consulted with them. Whereas every other studio, because they know the theaters are their business partners, they make all their money from the movie theaters. That's where they make all their money. The movie theaters make them a lot of money, and they make the movie theaters money. They have a symbiotic relationship. They're partners, all that kind of stuff. So they're supposed to treat each other with respect. And all the other studios were like, hey, listen, the movie theaters are being shut down. We've got this Onward movie. We've spent all this money on marketing and promotion. We need to take it and put it right onto Disney Plus to take advantage of the, $70 million we spent on marketing. We need to be able to capitalize on that. So they had conversations with the theaters, and the theaters understood. What the theaters got really pissed off at Universal for was they basically found out about it through the press release. Like no discussion with them whatsoever. And that really stuck them the wrong way, and it should have. But we're now well into this really odd situation where the normal rules of the relationship between the studios and how they release their movies, none of that applies right now because everybody's just trying to figure out there's no precedent for this. And so for them to make the decision that we're going to take King of Staten Island, we think we're going to have our best shot at doing anything with it right now by putting it straight to VOD. And that's what they did. Again, the studio aren't the ones that made the decision to have the theater shut down. Of course, by the way, King of Staten Island was not always intended to be a VOD. It was originally intended to be a theatrical release. But nobody foresaw the pandemic, right? Nobody foresaw that coming or could have possibly prepared for it from the movie industry point of view. And so I don't know that they're trying to screw over the drive-ins. They're just trying to do what's best for their property right now. And again, we're now 3 months into this situation, and I just don't think the normal rules apply. And I have been thrilled to hear about the resurgence of drive-in theaters, but it's a difficult situation. It's a difficult situation. It is. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. Next up, Joshua Richard writes, hey, John, I know this is a touchy subject for you, but I like Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. Granted, I do agree he is used as a jobber, but from what we've seen so far, I like his version of Clark. What would you like to see from his character in a spinoff? I don't care. I don't care. I have no interest in even watching the first 5 seconds of that show. I just have no interest. Don't get me wrong. I'm not boycotting it. I'm not saying nobody watch the Superman show because I don't like what they did with Superman. No, but just my own personal choice. I hate the way they've handled the Superman character, so I just don't have any desire to watch what they're doing with that Superman character next. I think if anybody does enjoy it and wants to see it, they absolutely should go and watch it, and hopefully they enjoy it. But for me, I gave this iteration of Superman a chance. And they basically pulled out their insufficient dick and pissed all over the granddaddy of all superheroes. The one superhero that should be most revered and most respected and most cherished and most taken care of. It's okay to job superhero characters. You do not job any of the Trinity. You do not job Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman. You do not job those three. Unless in some rare circumstances they are actually fighting each other. Okay, then there's a rare exception there. But generally speaking, you do not job Superman. And they just every chance they had in that show, they treated Superman like an incompetent buffoon. And they had to belittle Superman to make their Supergirl character look good. And I hated that. I hate it. You don't do that to Superman. You don't do that to Batman. You don't do that to Wonder Woman. It's just is what it is. So I couldn't give a flying crap about what they do with this Superman in this new spin-off show. I don't care. I have no interest or desire to watch it. I'm not trying to turn anybody else off from watching. I mean, look, if you like it, awesome. If it brings you joy and entertainment when you watch it, that's the greatest thing in the world. And I hope that the new show, will further that for you and that you enjoy it as well. But for me, I'm out. I gave it a shot. I gave them an opportunity to do something with this Superman character. And the only reason they ever brought the Superman character in was to put over another character. That's called jobbing, and I hate that. So I don't care what they do with this new one. I don't care. I don't care if they say Superman gave up all of his superpowers and becomes a professional checker player. And that's all every episode is Clark Kent trying to become the world's greatest checker player. I don't care. I just don't care. All right. Thanks for asking, Joshua. All right. Zayn writes, Hey guys, I hope y'all are doing well. We are, thank you. Just watched Citizen Kane for the first time. Rosebud for the first time in wow. Talk about a great film. I can see some influences in old Spielberg and Mr. Fincher regarding some of their signature filming techniques. Thoughts on it? Thanks a lot. Well, we talk about Citizen Kane all the time. Listen, there's a good segment of the cinephile community that will still today consider Citizen Kane maybe the greatest movie of all time. I'm not one of them. I love Citizen Kane. I probably have it in my top 30 or 40 of all time, but it's like not in my top 10, but still it's great. And it is absolutely one of those heavily influential films. Like we talk a lot about Star Wars being a majorly influential films that's really influenced a lot of the filmmakers today. Godfather is another one of those poignant movies that influenced the way directors who were growing up at that time understood the medium. Citizen Kane was that for the previous generation of that as well. It is simply one of the most important films ever made, and it's wonderful. And it's one of the original twists. It's one of the original movies to have a big twist, right? Rosebud. And I won't give away the spoiler for some of you who want to check it out. But yeah, I love Citizen Kane. We talk about it on the show a lot. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. And again, considered by some to be maybe even the greatest film of all time. All right, Kazam the Moon Man writes, JC, I found a movie that's worse than Doolittle in 2020. Artemis Fowl is pure trash. Story makes no sense and was rushed. Child actors were horrible. Sorry. Dench and Gad slept walk through it. VFX looked cheap. No wonder it got booted to Disney Plus. Smack my head. Yeah, I'm not. I wish, Kazam, I could say that, oh man, you're the first person I heard from that didn't like it and everybody else loved it. I wish I could say that because Kenneth Branagh directed it. And I love Kenneth Branagh. And yeah, dude, I wish I could say yours was the first review I've heard saying they didn't like it, but it is getting roasted. Actually, let me just double check here quickly. Last time I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, it was at 12%. Last time I checked, it was at 12%. It's gone down. It's now at 10%. 10% on the Tomatoes de Rotten. Not looking good. Directed by the great Kenneth Branagh, too. That's so disappointing to me. Because Kenneth Branagh is awesome. He's an awesome director. It is so... But again, you're absolutely right, Kazam. It's like, oh yeah, that's why Disney ditched it on Disney Plus. That's why they did that. Yeah. It's really a shame. I mean, I will watch it. Even though I'm gathering from everybody that it's terrible, I will watch it. If for no other reason, it's because Kenneth Branagh directed it. But it fills my heart with sadness. It fills my heart with sadness because I'm hearing all this negative stuff about it. It's really too bad. All right, Chris Warden writes, I just read that Cinemark, we're going to talk about this on Monday, tomorrow. I just read that Cinemark has pulled the plug on their planned $2.2 billion acquisition on Cineplex. And now Cineplex is taking them to court. Looks like it could get really ugly really fast. Well, it's not Cinemark, it's Cineworld. So that's two very, very different companies, all right? It wasn't Cinemark that was trying to buy Cineplex. It was Cineworld, the same company that owns Regal. So they had finalized a deal to buy Cineplex, the Canadian movie theater chain. And my God, they need new ownership because that Canadian cinema chain has gone to crap. I despise them now. And they used to be, Cineplex to me used to be the gold standard in moviegoing. And they have they're now an embarrassment, in my opinion, and only my opinion. They are now the embarrassment of the theatrical industry. I won't waste all the time going through all the reasons that I've done a million times already, but they suck. Cineplex sucks, and they're evil, in my opinion. A lot of things that they do are just purely shady and underhanded in a way of taking advantage of their customers because they know there's no other viable alternative. If you want to be a movie fan in Canada, you basically got to go to a Cineplex theater. Now, apparently there's been some other theaters popping up, but for the most part, if you live in most major cities, you've got one choice, a Cineplex theater. And because they know they've got that monopoly, they have treated their customers like crap and like sheep. A lot of their the way they do things, I won't get, because I get really mad when I think about it. Anyway, but it looked like there was hope on the horizons because Cineworld was going to buy them out. It's like, yes, Cineplex can become, a wonderful place to go see movies again. And then word came out that Cineworld backed out of the deal. Now, I'm not all up to speed on all the details. I'm going to get up to speed later today, and we're going to make this a main topic on the John Campea Show tomorrow. So I can't really say much about it now because I don't understand all the details yet. I've been celebrating my anniversary, so I haven't really had a chance to go delve into it, but we will talk about this more tomorrow, Chris. All I can tell is that it breaks my heart because I saw some light at the end of the tunnel that Cineplex could become a great movie theater chain again, and it's been dashed. But we'll find out. We'll find out. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, Chris. All right, Chris Warden also writes, also, what are your thoughts on Jorge Masvidal turning down a middleweight title fight because he wasn't willing to take less money than what he made from the Nate Diaz fight? Oh, he's an idiot. Jorge Masvidal's an idiot. You can tell him I said that. He's an idiot. Oh, he beat the crap out of me for sure, but he is an absolute idiot. He's a moron. So, look, I get it. On one hand, it's like, wait a minute. You want to pay me less money? And by the way, it doesn't matter. Jorge Masvidal is not that good. Like, I'm sorry to everybody who buys into the hype and that spectacular 6-second flying knee knockout. Yeah, beautiful. He had that fight against Nate Diaz. But here's the thing. Jorge Masvidal is not that good. He's good. Don't get me wrong. He's good, but he's not that good. And I remember when him and Nate Diaz were having that big title, that they made up a title for their fight, Baddest Motherfucker, the BMF title, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was there to put the belt around the winner and all that kind of stuff. It's like, these are two guys with mediocre records. I mean, both of them have lost over like 11 or 12 fights. Neither of them have a really great record. And they're giving them this fake BMF title to make them fight. Whatever. Masvidal is an exciting fighter, but he's not top notch. How he got offered a fight against Usman, the champion, is beyond me. Usman would have annihilated Masvidal. Usman would have destroyed him. And I'm thinking in under 3 rounds. Jorge Masvidal is not in Usman's class. Now, very, very few fighters on the planet are in Usman's class. But this Usman versus Burns fight is going to be interesting next month. But at any rate, so I get it. On its surface, wait a minute. You're going to pay me less money for a title fight than you did in this last fight? Yeah, because that last fight was a big circus. The BMF title that they made up. Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. Jorge was just coming off that 6-second knockout. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was going to be, it was their main event. It was all that kind of stuff. They were going to make more money. The UFC was making more money off that fight, and so they could pay him more money. Now, there's no audience. They can't sell tickets. And even though this is a title fight, a middleweight title fight between Usman and Masvidal is not going to get as much attention or get as many pay-per-view buys as the BMF title with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson there, Nate Diaz versus Masvidal. It's just not. There's no paying customers. It's not going to be as high profile. People aren't going to be as interested in it. So yes, Jorge, get your head out of your ass and understand that you're not going to make as much money in that fight than you did in that other one. It's simple math, you idiot. It's simple math. Well, as a professional athlete, it's not my responsibility. Just shut up with that nonsense. They're not getting the money for this fight that they got for the other fight, and therefore they can't pay you the same money for this fight than you got for the other. It's simple effing math. Honestly, I think Jorge Masvidal knows he stands no chance against Usman. And I think he just used this as an excuse to not take that fight. Because right now, listen, Jorge Masvidal is really popular right now. And he's an exciting fighter to watch. If he just goes in and gets his ass handed to him by Usman, he loses all of that. All that mystique that he's built up over the last 2 years or so is gone. I don't think he wanted that fight. And I think he's using this money thing because he can't be that dumb. He can't be that dumb. So I think he is strategically using the money as a scapegoat issue to hide and camouflage the fact that he wants no part of getting in a cage with Usman. Usman will kill him. Now, I think Usman and Burns is going to be a good fight, but Usman would kill Masvidal, and I think Masvidal knows that, and I think he's using this money thing as a cover. That's my take on it. I could be wrong. But that's completely how I interpret this, because you can't be that dumb. You can't be that dumb. All right, anyway. Murray Reich writes, I knew Tenet wouldn't open by July 17th. Well, practically, as it's only moving 2 weeks. New York City has only started phase 1 reopening on June 8th, and theaters are phase 4. Phase 2 starts June 22nd, hopefully. For sure, they wouldn't have had theaters reopen by at least the end of July, maybe if E.T. goes to plan. I don't think just New York would have been a problem. I think even if New York theaters weren't open, it only represents a certain percentage of the overall country, and I don't think that would have been it. I honestly think that the main reason they moved it and only moved it 2 weeks was to when they found out when AMC was going to be able to be open by and when Regal was going to be able to be open by, they realized we need a bigger amount of buffer between when the theaters first open their doors to when we play Tenet. We need a little bit of a buffer there to ramp up enthusiasm again and all that kind of stuff. I honestly don't think it's just because of New York. I really don't, because LA is going to be open. Almost everywhere else in the country is going to be open. So I really don't think they just did this move just because of New York. I really don't. I think it's all because they knew they wanted theaters open everywhere for at least a number of weeks to get people back in the idea of going in. But we'll find out. We'll find out. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, just a few questions. How do you feel about movie theaters opening up mostly in July? And do you think the first day of reopening will bring in huge crowds of recommend size for the shows? Also, what films do you recommend to be shown in cinemas? Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be a mixture of classics and some leftover movies that were just starting their theatrical run when they got shut down in the first place. So that's what's going to be doing that. Are they going to open to huge crowds? No. No, because it's not Tenet opening. It's not Mulan. So not Mulan. No, it is Mulan. It's not Mulan. It's not, Wonder Woman 84. They're going to open with old movies. Will that pack out the theaters right away? No, but they don't need it to. They just need to open with some of these movies to get people back. So there's going to be some people that go, but at least they're going to know word of mouth is going to spread. The movies are back in business. The movie theaters are open. You can go right now and go watch The Invisible Man again. You can go right now and watch Lord of the Rings. You can go right now and watch Avengers. You can go right now and watch the first Avatar. You can go right now and go watch Endgame again, whatever. Is that going to pack out the theaters right away? No. But they don't need it to. They just need to get the ball rolling. So that's how I kind of see that happening. But I do believe that once Tenet opens, once Mulan opens, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of theaters filled to what their capacity is going to be. Remember, they're going to operate on limited capacity at first. And that's important. But I still think you're going to see them packing out those capacities. I do. I really do think we are. If the restaurants opening and all that kind of stuff are any indicator, I think we're seeing that a lot of people are itching to get back to the theaters. So we will find out soon enough. All right. BW Rosa writes, hey, John, hope you're doing well. With Wonder Woman 84, Godzilla vs. Kong being the latest to be delayed till later this year or next year, what other movies do you see getting hit with the delay button in the near future? And do you see it hurting studios money-wise? Well, whenever studios have to delay a film, it of course hurts them a little bit. Look, Tenet is, I don't even know if you can consider Tenet a delay. Moving 2 weeks is hardly a delay. So that's fine. Also, stuff like Wonder Woman 84, it's not getting nudged much. I honestly, because so many other films already made their big moves, I really don't think we're going to see many others. I'll be honest with you. I was still surprised. Like I just said on the show the other day, I think Godzilla vs. Kong is going to keep its date, but it definitely could still move. And it moved, but even though I said it could still move, I'm surprised. I am surprised. Like, I knew it could move, but I didn't think it would. Most of the other films have already made their big date adjustments, well beyond July and August. And some of them haven't even announced their new release dates yet. So I don't really think there's many movies left to announce delays. I think the theaters are going to get opened back up again. I think you're going to see Mulan and Tenet do big business, even with limited capacity. I think you're going to see them doing big business because there's not going to be much competition. And then I think you're going to see most of these other films all keep the dates that they already currently have. And remember, some of them don't even have those dates yet, so I don't see many more moving. But yeah, whenever a studio's got to move a movie, it affects money-wise. It certainly does. Some more than others, some very little, but all to some degree. All to some degree. All right. The Wakandan Forever writes, silly idea films. Number 1, Cowboys versus Aliens. You know, it's not a bad graphic novel, but they didn't figure out a way to make it work on screen. Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. Again, I really like that movie. I am a unashamed defender of Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. I like that movie. Number 3, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which was terrible. Snakes on a Plane, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Surf Ninjas, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Blackula. You know, I've never seen Blackula. Number 10, Soul Plane. Soul Plane is a delightful little ridiculous movie. It is. But you're right. All these conceptually, like, what were they thinking making that? But some of these are based on pre-existing material. Like even Abraham Lincoln is based on a very popular novel. Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, which was written by the same person who wrote Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. But yet the Abraham Lincoln one was terrible, but Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies was actually really fun and really good. But you're right. Weird ideas and weird concepts, all Wakandan. They absolutely are. All right, Wakandan also writes, happy anniversary, John. John, I never told you, I am your father's brother's nephew's, this is Dark Helmet. Your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate. Don't tell Ann, but I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. And now let's see how well you handle it. P.S. Maybe one day I will find a nice fembot. Well, now you're changing movies. Fembot is not a... I mean, you're talking about Austin Powers there at that point, but yes, one of the I never mind a good quote from Spaceballs, man. Never mind a good quote from Spaceballs. All right, the Wakanda Forever also writes, better than the real thing. Number 1, Dark Helmet. I don't know what you mean by better than the real thing. Number 2, Goldmember. Number 3, Austin Powers. Number 4, Johnny English. I like Johnny English. Number 5, Darkwing Duck. Number 6, Dr. Evil. Number 7, Mighty Mouse. Number 8, Radioactive Man. Number 9, Hammerman. Number 10, Spider Ham. P.S. What did you think of Weird Al's UHF movie? Have a good one. Oh, I love UHF. I love UHF. Now, of course, I was already a fan of Weird Al because I had his album with Eat It and everything on it when I was a kid. And so, I mean, when UHF, I was still a kid what year did UHF come out? Hold on a second. Let me pull this up here. UHF IMDb. UHF was 89. Yeah, so I was still a kid when that came out, but I was already a Weird Al fan when that movie came out. I love UHF. I love it. And of course, it was Kramer, Michael Richards. Before he was on Seinfeld, he was Stanley Spadowski. I think that was his name, and it's Stanley Spadowski. In UHF, you get to drink from the fire hose. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love it. Wheel of Fish. I mean, you're stupid. Everything about UHF I love. Victoria Jackson was in it when she was like still hot from the Saturday Night Live and everything. I don't know why Victoria Jackson didn't become a bigger star. I always liked Victoria Jackson. Anyway, absolutely love UHF. To this day, I still love it. Next up. Andy Hong writes, I'm surprised that the CW are open to a Superman and Lois TV series because I imagine discussions between the CW and the Arrowverse producers were like this in the early stages. The world doesn't need a Superman TV series if it has Supergirl. Yeah, I know. Honestly, I will say one thing. The one thing that makes me morbidly curious about the new Superman Lois TV show is what the hell made them think? I mean, they clearly have no respect for the character. They clearly have no respect for the Superman character. So what made them want to do a superhero show? Like, is it going to be a show that's used to every they're going to have a new superhero come into town that proves that they're better than Superman, so then go off and do a new CW show. It's like, well, this new show must be good. He beat Superman on Superman's own show. I have no idea. They clearly have such a fundamental disrespect for the character. I have no idea what they're doing. But yeah, like, why do they even do this? Again, one of the most infuriating lines from Superman saying Supergirl, Earth doesn't need me. Earth doesn't need Superman. They've got you, Kara. I'm like, okay, F this show. F this show. I mean, anyway. Don't even get me going, Andy. Don't even get me going. All right. Silly Goose writes, my biggest regret in life is not seeing Interstellar in the theaters. It has several emotional moments that profoundly impacted me, and I cry like a baby every time I watch it. This movie is perfect in my eyes, and I cannot overstate my love for it. Thanks. I mean, listen, I know a lot of people that love Interstellar, and I like Interstellar. I do. But it is probably my second least favorite Nolan film. Now, understand, I like every single Christopher Nolan film. There's not a film he's made that I don't like. I like them all. But Interstellar, Christopher Nolan swung for the fences with that movie, and he made a movie that very, very few directors could have made. I still think it had issues and some problems, and so it is not one of my favorite Christopher Nolan films. As a matter of fact, it is my second least favorite. But it's still a Christopher Nolan film, so I still really like it. And I do really like Interstellar. But I've got some friends that are like psychotically passionate about that movie, Silly Goose. And I just love that film. And I'm sure you'll probably find more people than others. And again, for me, I'm a thumbs up on Interstellar, absolutely. But I clearly don't like it as much as you do. But it is a movie, it's just one of the most ambitious movies made in the last 15 years. It was super ambitious. Like I said, Nolan swung for the fences on that, like big time. And still got a really good result. Not one of my favorites, but still a really, really good movie. Let's see. And maybe with these theaters reopening, Silly Goose, maybe you'll get to see Interstellar pop up in a movie theater near you sometime and see it on the big screen for the first time. Wouldn't that be good? All right. David Crabtree writes, okay. Favorite superhero movies. Number 15, The Incredibles. Love that movie. Number 14, The Amazing Spider-Man. Number 13, Superman 2. Number 12, Thor. Thor 1. No, Thor. Number 11, Dark Knight. Number 10, Infinity War. Number 9, Endgame. Number 8, Civil War. Number 7, Age of Ultron. Number 6, Winter Soldier. Number 5, Batman Begins. Number 4, Captain America, The First Avenger. Number 3, Wonder Woman. Number 2, Batman. And number 1, Batman 89. And number 1, The Avengers. That is a unique list. Listen, I've had many people send in their list of favorite superhero movies over this year. This is a very unique one. To see the order they have this in. But that's the great thing about these movies, man, is that they all hit us in those ways. And I think this is a really unique list. Incredible. I like also the way that you very specifically said superhero movies, not comic book movies, because obviously Incredibles is not a comic book movie, but it is a superhero movie. And I like that it made it on. By the way, I love Incredibles 2. Love it. If you haven't seen Incredibles 2, make sure you do check it out, because I'm still torn about which with the two Incredibles movies I like more. I'm torn. I go back and forth a little bit, to be honest, because I really do think Incredibles 2 is that good. Anyway, Dan Ketchum writes, instead of getting rid of elongated man character, it would be incredibly easy to recast him. After all, Ralph has the ability to change into anyone else. They could just say he got stuck in a new form, but given the Batwoman decision, who knows? Well, I mean, listen, I've talked about this. Somebody else wrote back in the other day and said the exact same thing, Dan. Said, well, you don't have to get rid of elongated man because you can just say he made himself look different. To me, you don't even have to do that. You don't even have to do that. Just have a new actor playing it. You don't have to say anything about, oh, he looks different because of this. No, listen, when they changed Rhodey from Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 2 and they got in Don Cheadle, they didn't go, oh no, how do we explain to the audience that he looks different now? They didn't. It's just Don Cheadle. That's it. Yeah, it's me. Deal with it. That's it. When they changed Dumbledore actors because of the death of the first one, and they moved on to the next one, when they changed Dumbledore actors in Harry Potter, they didn't go, oh no, how are we going to explain to the audience that Dumbledore looks different now? What are we going to do? The audience's brains will melt in their heads and pour out of their ears. No. They just, okay, this guy's playing Dumbledore now. Done. And we were good. You know, when they changed Clarice from one actress, you know, Julianne Moore took over for, why am I forgetting the name of one of the best actresses in the world? Now I gotta look it up. Hold on a second. The Silence of the Lambs. Why am I forgetting the name of Jodie Foster? So when they changed Clarice from Jodie Foster to Julianne Moore, they didn't go, oh no, wait, how do we explain to the audience that Julianne Moore looks different than Jodie Foster does? The audience can't handle this. Yes, they can. And they're totally fine. So I agree with you. They don't need to go, he looks different because, no, it's a new actor. Deal with it. And the audience in 30 seconds will have adjusted our brains and will be perfectly fine. However, even though that's what I think they should do, I think they should just recast, not get rid of the character altogether. I have a feeling, and I don't know this, by the way, there's no insider information here. This is just me speculating. I have a feeling they will just get rid of the character because I don't think they want to deal with this issue anymore. And I think if they bring in a new actor to play Ralph Dibny, aka the Elongated Man, then it's just going to bring up the discussion again about them firing Sawyer and whether they should or shouldn't have fired Sawyer and all that kind of stuff. And I have no position on that, whether they should or shouldn't have fired him. I think there's very, very good reasons about why maybe they should have just kept him. I think there are very, very good reasons about why they needed to let him go. So I'm kind of torn in the middle of that. I just think it's more complex and more nuanced of a scenario than anybody wants to admit. I think everybody just thinks black and white. Oh, they just should have kept him. Oh, they just should have fired him. I think it's a lot more complex than that. And that's why I don't really have a position. I would have been totally fine if they kept him. I totally understand that they fired him. So that's just kind of where I'm at. But making the decision to fire him, I don't think they want to now. I think by the time the next Flash season starts, I think they want to be past this issue. And if they recast it, it's just going to bring the issue up again. Now, you can make an argument that having Elongated Man suddenly missing is going to bring it up again too. Sure, but much smaller. You know, you have an episode in, who was the name of the girl that Dibny was helping out and he was starting to get attached to at the end there? Anyway, all you got to do is say, Ralph and so-and-so went off on this adventure to the Southern Himalayas and we haven't heard from them since. Okay, they addressed it. It'll bring up the issue again for a moment, but then they never have to mention it again. Whereas if you recast it, every episode that the new guy is on, it's going to just bring up the discussion again. And then it's going to bring up, Sawyer was better in this role than the new guy is. And it just opens up a lot of stuff. And I'm guessing, pure guess, Warner Brothers doesn't want to deal with that. I'm guessing CW doesn't want to have to deal with that. So I could be way wrong on that. I could be way off on that. My guess is they're not going to recast, even though I think they should. And I think they're just going to write the character out of the show. That way they only have to deal with it for a moment when it becomes clear that the character's not there, instead of having to deal with it for maybe months longer by recasting it. Again, I don't know. I'm just guessing, but we'll see. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Dan. All right, next up, David Crabtree writes, by the way, I just want to give some appreciation and a huge thanks to both you and Rob for fostering such positive and welcoming online communities, both together and separately, whether to discuss, share, recommend, or have a friendly debate. You both are class acts. Well, thank you for that, David. I appreciate that. And I know Robert will appreciate hearing that as well. And it's especially, we just gone through a situation with Rob and all that kind of stuff and whatever. And it's unfortunate. And look, let me be clear. Rob and I have had some very, very frank discussions. Rob and I have had, because, we've known each other a long time, and we have that type of relationship that we can have some very frank and brutally honest conversations with each other. And he and I, when all the stuff that was going on with Rob was going on, he and I had some very, very raw discussions and some very, very raw things, because we've developed that type of relationship that we feel safe doing that with each other. And it's not news to hear me say that, yeah, Rob started it. Rob started the whole thing. And it all started with a ill-advised and irresponsible and borderline dangerous thing he was saying. Even though I understood what it was, where he was coming from and what he was saying, I just think the way it came across was not representative of what he actually thought and how he actually sees things. And it started a big kerfuffle. And then some other people got involved that should have kept their stupid mouths shut. It got other people involved that should have kept their stupid mouths shut. But they got involved, and people and just spiraled out of control. And then there was the RB3 part of it. But RB3, to his credit, he started trying to get involved with it by trying to be reasonable. And, he just said to Rob, hey man, I really think you should take that down. He was being reasonable and blah, blah. And then Rob said some things that Rob admits was just because he was getting defensive. And it, obviously, and it made RB3 mad. And then RB3 said some things, and it just spun out of control. But, I got to give full kudos to Rob and RB3 for the way that they both went. You know what? This is spun out of control. This is not the way men should deal with things. And I don't say that in such a way as just women can't deal with it. No, I'm just saying that as a man, I could say that, yeah, two men, this is not how two men deal with things. By airing everything out on Twitter and blah, blah, blah. And I think Rob and RB3 set a great example of, saying, oh, let's put the brakes on this. Because you're saying things about me that you don't really think. And I'm saying things about you that I don't really think. And this is just spinning out of control. Now everybody else is chiming in on Twitter, and we're doing this on a public stage. You know what? Here's a novel idea. Let's get on the phone. How crazy is that? Let's get on the phone and talk to each other. Let's listen to each other. Let's hear each other out. And instead of trying to interpret meaning in 140 characters, let's actually talk to each other and have a conversation. And they did. And I think that's great. And I think that's a great example for how a lot of people handle things. And I think that is another way. And look, I think feelings were hurt. I think some damage was done, but that happens in life. That's going to happen in life. The key thing though is that these two guys were aware of it, put the brakes on it, actually did the hard thing. It's easy. Any imbecile can get on Twitter and go blah, 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 and throw something out into the ether on a public stage. Any imbecile moron can do that. What a real man does, what a real adult does, is harder, which is actually get on the phone and talk to somebody and work things out. And I think that is also indicative of the fact of however messy that situation got. I think that's really indicative of, and I'm only going to speak for Rob here, and I'm not going to speak for RB3, but for Rob's desire for the online community to be a place that we all just enjoy each other. And we can all just talk about the things we love and not using social media as a weapon of mass destruction, which is easy to do. Again, any idiot can get on and tweet something. Look how brave I am tweeting this thing. Ooh, look how brave I am. No, that's easy. I think the harder work is what Rob and RB3 did. And I think that speaks to exactly what you're saying, David, about the fact that Rob wants the online community to be a place where we can just all be fans together. And sometimes we do it well, sometimes we don't do it well, but that's the goal at any rate, even when we fail. That's the goal. And I think how Rob conducted himself, after the whole, and let's face it, we all get ourselves in bad situations. I talked the other day about how I got myself in a bad situation. We all get ourselves in bad situations. The key then is how do you deal with it after the fact? And I think the way these guys dealt with it was really admirable. And I'm looking forward to everybody being able to move on for that and getting back exactly to what you're saying, David, where we can just create online communities where we can discuss, share, recommend, and have good friendly debates. And that's the goal. And all of us will drop all of us who are on YouTube and podcasts and websites, we're all going to drop the ball sometimes on that. We are. The best of us will. The worst of us will. All of us do. But can we recover and then just get back on track, get back on what the target is, which is to be exactly what you just said, David, a place to discuss, share, recommend, have friendly debates. That's the goal. As much as we fail, that's the goal at any rate. So thanks for sharing that, David. All right. Let's see here. Next up, Dragonborn Druid writes in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level, man. I really appreciate that. Dragonborn Druid writes, Last Airbender is my favorite show of all time. I just like to hear in more detail and a spoiler version of what you thought of it and the characters. The 4-part finale was great. Zuko is my favorite character of all time. Thanks, my fellow Canadian. Well, I appreciate that, Dragonborn. What I am not going to do right now, though, I am not going to go into a full, exhaustive 20 to 30 minute breakdown of what I thought of Last Airbender, nor do a big spoiler review. This is a show that came out, 13 years ago or however long ago it was. And I really, really did enjoy it very much. I enjoyed it very much, but I'm not going to go and do a big thing. What I will say about it, though, is this, is that at first, I was nearly sidetracked, but then everybody did warn me about that. Everybody warned me when I announced I was going to start watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. A lot of people warned me. Now, John, just so you know, don't be startled by this. The first season is the more kid one. It really is. I mean, the whole show is made to be very kid friendly for sure. But the first season, John, just be ready, be prepared. It is more childish than seasons 2 and seasons 3. The whole series is very kid friendly, but the first season will feel a little bit more childish and a little more silly and a little more immature. And sure enough, yeah, I did find that. But even within the child stuff and the stuff that was clearly just targeted at young children and whatever, even then I could tell, man, they're digging some deep roots for some pretty deep mythology here. Like the whole mythology of the Avatar and all these things that they're building about the 4 nations and the cycle of the Avatar. The Avatar comes as an earth kingdom, then comes as an air kingdom, then comes as a fire kingdom, then comes as a water tribe, then it starts the cycle again. Like, just, I'm watching this and like, man, even with all this stuff, they're digging some deep foundational roots for some really cool mythology. And that's what kept me hooked on the show through the first season. And I enjoyed it, even though it was more childish than the rest. But man, once you get into seasons 2 and 3, and they really you start getting the payoff for all that initial mythology that they build, and then they take it even deeper, and then they make it more character centric, and then they start getting to each character having their own kind of sub stories and subplots. I'm telling you what, it was Emmy level stuff. But by the time I finished season 2, I was like, I'm amazed at this show. You know, in this package of a little kid's animated show, I'm amazed what they were able to do. And then by the time season 3 was over and the series was done, I'm like, wow, they did Endgame before Endgame did Endgame. The way they brought together all the individual storylines and brought together all the various characters we met through the 3 seasons and brought it all to this big climax. It's like, holy crap, they did Endgame before Endgame did it. And I never knew. So anyway, dude, those are my thoughts on Avatar. I'm not going to say it's one of my favorite shows of all time, but I was bloody impressed with it. I was really impressed by it. And I will probably watch it again sometime. And you know what? This may sound morbid, but I'm actually really curious now to go back and watch the last Airbender movie, the M. Night Shyamalan one. I'm tempted to go back and watch that again, because when I saw it the first time, I had never seen the TV series, and I just knew how bad it was. But now I'm morbidly curious to go back, Dragonborn, and go watch it again, just to see what do I think about it now. What do I think about it now that I've actually watched the TV series? It'd be interesting to see. All right, let's move on here. Next up, Ben Rayner. And again, thanks for sending that in, man. I appreciate that very much. Ben Rayner writes, Hey, John, with this Gone with the Wind HBO Max situation, it surprises me how many people are headline believers, because some of the headlines, Gone with the Wind off HBO Max, when it should be Gone with the Wind off temporarily. Just read to article before getting angry. Yeah, I mean, look, that was one of the big things, because I had all these people, you look on social media and everything, everybody's getting all mad. Warner Brothers canceled Gone with the Wind. They got rid of Gone with the Wind. Whoa, 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 whoa. Everybody take a breath. HBO Max did not get rid of Gone with the Wind. There are there are three big details in the story, and everybody only paid attention to one and ignored the other two. The one detail that everybody paid attention to, HBO Max took Gone with the Wind off HBO Max. And everybody loses their mind. But they ignored the other two main pieces of information. Number one, the removal is only temporary. The second piece of information that they ignored is that they're going to put it back on and they're not going to edit it. They're only taking it down temporarily to add on to it some sort of disclaimer and discussion about some of the attitudes that are portrayed in that movie that are not consistent with the values we have as a culture. And as HBO Max said, they weren't acceptable then, they're not acceptable now. But they just felt that they needed to put some sort of discussion about this historical context of the movie so that if people watch and they want to see that short discussion, they can, and to frame it in some kind of disclaimer at the beginning. But the movie is being put back on HBO Max and it's not being edited. And I found that a lot of people that were writing into me were like, John, can you believe they're taking Gone with the Wind off HBO Max? It's like, you didn't actually read the articles, did you? Because yes, they're taking it off, but only for a short time, and they're going to put it back on unedited. And like when I find a number of people I talk to, they're like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's not that big of a deal then. No, it's not that big of a deal. Like if they were pulling it permanently and throwing it away and pretending that it never happened, then yeah, that's something to talk about. But they said it's only going to be a temporary removal. We're going to add a discussion to it, and we're going to put it back unedited, because they said to edit stuff out is to pretend like it never happened, and that's not good for us either, which is absolutely correct. So yeah, they pulled it, but take a breath. It's only temporary, and it is being put back up, and when it is put back up, it's going to be unedited. So everybody, you're right. Everybody got freaked out for nothing. Everybody got freaked out over the headline instead of actually reading the article. So yeah, there's that. All right, Tora Man writes, with all the constant movies shifting release dates, at this point I'm going in with a I'll believe it when I see it mentality for Tenet. Yeah, I mean, the one thing to say about Tenet though is that it's only been moved 2 weeks, right? That tells me that they're probably pretty firm on this. Because if they had any doubt about it, they would just say, we're pulling it off the 17th date, period. And we'll let you know when we're bringing it in. The fact that they're only moving it 2 weeks, and we've talked about it earlier, but listen, but I am like you, Tora Man, in the sense that I'm approaching almost every movie right now with I'll believe it when I see it, because it is such unprecedented times we're in. But as far as Tenet goes, I think the fact that it was only a 2 week move, I think that really solidifies it. So let's put it this way. Nothing's impossible, but I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked if they move it off this July 31st date. Otherwise, because I think if there was any possibility they weren't going to do July 31st, they wouldn't have announced July 31st at this point. So, but anything is possible, man. You're not wrong about that. Anything is possible. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, I just rewatched Gettysburg, a true masterpiece that deserves far more attention, and it's pretty amazing to think Jeff Daniels went straight from this to Dumb and Dumber. Listen, when you're talking about Gettysburg, which is, what year did you, it was before 2000, like 97, 98, 99, somewhere around there, right? Not only are you talking about Jeff Daniels, you look at the cast of that. You're also talking about Sam Elliott was in there. Sam Elliott, like Mr. Mustache was in there as well. You're talking about Charlie's dad, Martin Sheen, Tom Berenger. You're talking about, oh crap, I can't remember. The whole bunch of other people. I can't remember. But yeah, it is funny to look at not a lot of people I mean, Dumb and Dumber is what put Jeff Daniels on the map for a lot of people. He obviously had a career before that, but it was Dumb and Dumber that put him on the map. But yes, when you go back to Gettysburg, man, the cast is absolutely stacked on that. All right. Thanks for writing that in. All right. Next up, Min Tran writes, John, yesterday my friends and I watched The Hate You Give, which is strong. It's a strong movie. The first couple of minutes was so cringy, and after the beginning, the movie is so intense. You know what? My experience was pretty close to that, actually. Yeah, you're right. The movie to me did not start strong. Like, you can tell what they're setting up, but it felt like so on the nose on a lot of things and so one-dimensional that you're right. At first, it's like, ugh. But you're right. Then it changes gears. It really finds its flow after that and becomes really strong. And it is a strong, strong, strong movie. I'm glad you brought that one up, Min. All right. Joseph Campbell writes, hey, John, I was wondering, OBS Studio versus Wirecast. What's the pros and cons of each? And which one do you think is better? I hope you and Ann enjoyed your anniversary. I celebrate my 17th wedding anniversary on July 1st. Have a great day. Well, thank you so much for that, Jeff. Well, listen, Joseph, I should say, I'm not going to sit here and do a 25-minute breakdown of OBS versus Wirecast. The bottom line is this. Wirecast is better in almost every way. Wirecast is absolutely better than OBS. I use both for different things at different times. But there's no way. There is no way in which OBS is a superior product to Wirecast. In no reality is that true. But the great thing about OBS and its variants, like Streamlabs OBS or Slobs, what they call it. Streamlabs OBS is another one. All the variants of OBS. The obvious best thing about it is that it's free. Whereas the Wirecast, which I use for the John Campea Show and for open mic and stuff, I use Wirecast. And the reason I use Wirecast, it can just do way more than OBS can. But that comes at a price. Now, there's different levels of Wirecast you can buy. I have the highest level one, but that cost me about $800. Cost me about $800. But I simply needed the abilities that Wirecast gives me over OBS. I just simply needed that. 99% of streamers do not need, 90% of streamers, maybe not 99, 90% of streamers do not need the type of advanced functionality that Wirecast has, and they can make it work with OBS. The simplicity of OBS is one of the big strengths of OBS as well. Wirecast is a little bit more tricky to figure out, but not by much. Once you figure out the layering system within Wirecast, it actually becomes pretty intuitive. But yeah, Wirecast is easily the better product. But being free and the fact that OBS can do most of the stuff that the average YouTuber would want to do, and it's specifically really tailored for gamers, it's a very, very good product. Yeah, it's a very, very good product. Wirecast is better, but not everybody needs Wirecast. Believe me, not everybody needs Wirecast. And for most of the stuff that most people will do, OBS will perfectly do your job just fine. And it'll do it for free. So anyway, that's just kind of a basic breakdown of that, Joseph. All right, thanks for that, man. All right, next up, James Bonner writes, took basically forever, but finally watched two classics the other day. V for Vendetta, remember. Talk about rather timely these days, that's true. And Hoosiers. Talking about some Gene Hackman classic and Hoosiers. Where has this film been all my life? I can't help but wonder if Affleck's The Way Back was inspired by it. Oh, I'm sure it was to some degree. Hold on a second. Let me bring up the rest of the cast for Hoosiers here. I think Barbara Hershey was in there. And I think David... wrong David. I was thinking of a totally different David. David... Anspaugh directed. I was thinking of a totally different David. Not the same David I was thinking of directed it. But Gene Hackman, Dennis Hopper, I forgot, was in that as well. And it was Barbara Hershey in there as well. Yeah, Hoosiers is amazing. And definitely you can't watch The Way Back and not see the influences of Hoosier. But listen, it's not just The Way Back. You look at a lot of sports movies that came after Hoosiers in like 80, I'm going to say 83. Hold on a second. 86. You look at a lot of the sports movies that came out after Hoosiers. There was a lot of Hoosiers influence in a lot of sports movies, even that come out today. But yeah, because it's also basketball centric, you can see it a little bit more recognizably in The Way Back. But absolutely, man, Hoosiers is awesome. I love that movie. One of my favorite Gene Hackman movies, actually. All right, thanks a lot for that. All right, Cody Cordy writes, "Hey John, watched Da 5 Bloods over the weekend, twice actually. I loved it. Easily my favorite and best film of 2020. Delroy Lindo, also best performance of the year so far. I gripped my chair at one scene. When do you think? What do you think? And have you seen it? Let me know. Thanks. I have seen it and I liked it. And yeah, Delroy Lindo, I love him. He's just great in everything. I did not like it as much as you did. Again, I'll go for those of you who weren't around at the beginning of the show. You know, you take a movie like Spike Lee's last movie, Black Klansman, which was my second favorite movie of the year that came out. It was awesome concept, awesome message, awesome execution. With Da 5 Bloods, I found it awesome concept, awesome message, okay execution. Okay execution. I found a lot of it. Again, if I put up my review for Da 5 Bloods on Rotten Tomatoes, it's going to be one of the thumbs. I like this movie. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. But if you've been watching my show, you know how excited I've been for this movie. I thought the trailers have been spectacular. It's coming off of Spike Lee's Black Klansman, which was my number 2 favorite film of the year, only behind The Quiet Place, which I thought was the best film of that year. But some of it just felt, I don't know how to put it. It just, to me, it just didn't reach the same level that Lee's last film did. And maybe the problem is my expectations were too high. That could be it. My expectations were sky high. Because again, coming off of Black Klansman, the fact I thought the concept of the movie was great. The marketing for the movie I thought was fantastic. I love the trailers. I ate up the trailers. And I love the cast. And then Jean Reno in there as well. But yeah, I don't know. I was just waiting. I was enjoying the movie as I was watching it. I was just waiting for it to hit a point where I'd be like, oh, okay, now I'm really in. And it never quite hit there. I'll put it this way. To me, and I'm just thinking, maybe I'll take this back later, but this is just hitting me now. When you look at Black Klansman, the movie had within it a powerful message. But it always felt like the movie came first, and then the powerful message was a byproduct of this incredible movie. Watching Da 5 Bloods, even though the movie's good, I almost felt like the message was first, and then the quality of the movie came second. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I might talk about this again tomorrow, and I might have a completely different view of that. But I'm trying to put my finger on what it was about Da 5 Bloods that didn't work for me nearly as well as Black Klansman did. Because again, both great concepts, both great messages, but I just found one movie was a better executed movie than the other one. But hey, listen, it's got a super high rating right now on Rotten Tomatoes. And again, if I put up my review, mine would be one of the positive ones. I liked it, but it just didn't meet my maybe too high expectations, because my expectations were pretty stupid high. I got to admit, they were pretty stupid high. Maybe I just kind of sabotaged my experience of the movie, but I don't know. I'll have to check it out again at some point. All right. R. Lee writes, it certainly sounds like it's better than Artemis Fowl, though. All right. R. Lee writes, decided to watch Gone with the Wind last night to see what all the hubbub was about. The movie was fine as an AA. Yes, there were stereotypes, but it was depicting pre/present and post-Civil War storyline. This movie came out in 1939. John, fair to judge with 20/20 eyes. To a degree, yes. One of the things that HBO Max said in their statement was there are certain ways that things are depicted that weren't okay then and aren't okay now. The very fact that in 1939, Hattie McDaniels won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, and she wasn't allowed to sit at the same table as her white castmates because as a person of color, she had to sit at the back of the damn venue. She had to sit at the back. And by the way, that was only after a fight to even get her into the building because the venue where they held, remember, this is not in ancient Roman days. This isn't 1739. This was at the Academy Awards. They weren't even going to let her in the building because the venue that they held the Oscars that year had a no black people allowed rule. So I think yes, it tells us something about the culture at the time, but I think that adds a lot to what HBO said in their statement. There are some attitudes and things that were not okay. The way certain things were depicted were not okay then and are not okay now. But there's history, and they're only temporarily taking it down to add a disclaimer to it, and then they're going to put it back up, unedited, ready for everybody to view. And I think it brings up things that should be talked about. It's really amazing when you think about that. And it wasn't that long ago. There were movies when this was going on. Sometimes I think the way we deal with things, including me, is to think of things as such ancient history. It has nothing to do with our modern world. No, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. And so, yeah, anyway, I just think, especially today, I think these are discussions that need to be had. And I think, again, one of the reasons why I'm glad that HBO Max is not going to edit the film is because I believe those who ignore the past are doomed to repeat it. As the old saying goes, those who ignore the past are doomed to repeat it. And I think it should be in there. I don't think they should edit the film. But part of the reasons I don't think they should edit is because these are discussions we need to have today. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that, Arlie. It's good stuff that you're bringing up there, man. It's good stuff you're bringing up. All right, Joshua Stevens writes, where are we at here? I am glad to hear that they are going to finish the last 7 episodes of Supernatural. The first 13 episodes are on Netflix now, but they will finish the rest this year, either as a new season or a continuation of season 15. Oh yeah, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that was ever in doubt. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think that was ever in doubt. I always thought the plan was to finish it out. Just obviously, their shooting got interrupted with the whole pandemic and everything like that. I don't think they were ever, a show that's run this long, they were never just going to pull the plug and not show the final episodes. So I didn't think that was in doubt. So I think that was always, but you're right. It is good that they are doing that. I just never thought that was in doubt. All right. Starscream writes, all hail new Decepticon leader Starscream, and have you heard anything about the Snake Eyes movie to be released this year? Hope you had a nice anniversary, stay safe, and all hail. Oh crap, Megatron's back, gotta go. Remember, and it was Galvatron that showed up at Starscream's coronation and dusted him. Anyway, little Transformers inside baseball there. The good thing about Snake Eyes is they finished production before the lockdown. Now, I don't know if they have any reshoots to do, but they finished principal photography on Snake Eyes before the pandemic hit. So, as far as I know, they should be good to go for, I can't remember when the release date for it is. Hold on a second. Snake Eyes release date. I believe it's October. Yeah, October 23rd, 2020. So, since they were able to finish shooting the movie before the lockdown happened, and there's a lot of work you can do on the movie during the lockdown with everybody working from home. I haven't heard anything about any possibility of it moving. I think they should be able to hit their October 23rd release date. We'll find out. But yeah, of course, the most important news is they finished shooting the movie before the lockdown. And so that should give us, and I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I think Golding is a movie star. I think that dude's got every star quality in the world. I can't wait to see him in this. All right. John McKinney writes, When it comes to DC versus Marvel, here's how I look at it. Comics, DC animation, DC. Live action, DCEU, MCU. I don't like either one with a few exceptions. Live action outside of the DCEU, MCU, hit and miss, but that's just me, to each their own. I'll be honest with you, John, I have no idea what you're just saying. I have no idea. I'm going to try it one more time. When it comes to DC versus Marvel, here's how I look at it. Comics, DC. Okay, so you see DC as being better comics than Marvel DC. Animation, DC as being better. Live action, DCU, EU/MCU. So you see it as a tie in the live action. I don't like either one with a few exceptions. Live action outside of the DC MCU, hit and miss, but that's just, to me, to each their own. Yeah, I guess. To me, when it comes to the live action movies, it's very little question. Marvel has clearly done a much better job. Again, each movie is going to be subjective and everybody will have their own opinions of that. But to me, it's a pretty clear-cut thing. Marvel has clearly done a much better job with their live action movies than DC does. That doesn't mean DC hasn't put out some great stuff. Obviously, they have. I mean, you know how big of a fan I am of Man of Steel. I think it's one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. That said, just look at the success. People keep flocking back to the MCU because they have just consistently put out a high standard of excellence, with one overall plan being masterminded by Kevin Feige. They've just done it better. They've just done it better. Now, again, that will be up to each individual's subjective point of view, but that's kind of nice. When it comes to the comics and stuff like that, I don't know. Animation, to me, they both suck. They both suck. Both of them have some wins. Both of them have some wins in their columns when it comes to animation, particularly their straight to VOD animation, but generally I find it's all garbage, with a few exceptions. But when it comes to live action stuff, which is clearly the more important thing, it's hard to make a case. It's difficult to make a case, despite the fact that I've liked all the DCU movies other than Birds of Prey. It's hard to make a case for DCU over MCU at this point. Some will, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, to each their own. Everybody's got their own preferences, dude, just like you said. All right, Julius A. Goodwin writes, have to admit, I'm surprised to see you here on a Sunday. Well, that's because I couldn't do one yesterday, so there you go. But as always, glad to get a chance to wish you a good day. Thank you so much, Julius. In your opinion, is it safe to open theaters, restaurants, or public places? The toll is still rising, but the protests are top news lately. I do. Personally, but I am no medical expert. But here's why. To me, it's never been about, you don't wait for things to just, and by the way, it's hard to tell. We're getting more cases now, partially because we're actually getting testing now. It only took them 3 effing months, but now we're actually getting testing. So yeah, the number of COVID-19 cases are going to go up because now we know more people have it. So that's one thing. But to me, and again, I am no medical professional. To me, the issue has not been waiting for COVID to go away, right? It's like a sexually transmitted diseases. We didn't wait to start having sex with each other until all sexually transmitted diseases disappeared. No, they're still there. STDs are still there. But what we as a culture figured out is how to still live our lives, but do things and act in a way to minimize the risk of catching STDs, right? The STDs are still there. Every time you have sex, you could get one. But we've learned to do things and to take precautions and to act in such a way that we minimize the chances that we catch STDs when we go and have sex. To me, it's the same thing here. COVID-19 is still out there. It's not a matter of sitting around and waiting for COVID-19 to disappear. It's, have we learned how to live with it being there? Have we learned how to conduct ourselves in such a way that we can still go out and go to a restaurant or go to the movies, but we can do them in such a way that we minimize the risk of catching something? Whether that's, massive hand sanitizing, wearing masks, cleaning protocols in theaters, taking people's temperatures as they're coming into you. Listen, Ann and I went to a restaurant where they literally took your temperature before they let you in. I think that's great. They made you apply hand sanitizer, took your temperature, all that kind of stuff. I thought that was great. Does that 100% get rid of the chances that you'll catch something? No. But now they're just wearing a condom when having sex. But we have learned how to minimize the risk and now live and how we deal with it. It's not a matter of waiting for it to go away. It's about how do we function with it being there. And I know I can only speak for myself as a non-medical expert, saying that I have felt comfortable going into my local grocery store, even though there are people in there, because it feels to me like they are taking proper steps to minimize my risk. I see them outside the grocery store, wiping down with Clorox wipes all the shopping carts, making everybody apply hand sanitizer and making sure everybody's wearing a mask before they go into the grocery store. It's just these little things. And then when I get in the grocery store, I see their staff wiping all the shelves down, cleaning the floors, constantly, blah, blah, blah. It just makes me confident that they have done enough as a facility to minimize my risk of catching something while I'm there. And minimizing the risk that if I have it and don't even know, which I don't because I've been tested, but if I have it and didn't even know, minimizing risk that I could possibly give it to somebody else. So yeah, we might find out that it was a terrible mistake to reopen restaurants and theaters and businesses. We might find out a few months ago from now that it was a terrible mistake. But again, it's like the sex analogy. I feel like we have learned enough that if we act responsibly, that we can do these things, minimizing the risk. But again, we'll find out. I could be so wrong about that. I'm no medical expert. I could be so wrong, but that's just how I kind of feel about it right now, Julius. Thanks for writing that in, man, and for being so socially conscious about that. All right. Jay Meister 25 writes, have you seen Star Trek Deep Space Nine? Yep, watched all of it, talked about it a lot. It really is the best Trek. I used to think Next Generation was the best. DS9 is so much better. I disagree. I like Deep Space Nine, especially once they get into the Dominion stuff and all that kind of nonsense. And I liked when they brought Worf on and everything. But yeah, to me, it's the second best Trek. To me, Next Generation is still honestly significantly above Deep Space Nine. And I like Deep Space Nine very, very much, but I think Next Generation is just a different level above it. I really do. But that's just me, but I really do like Deep Space Nine. Speaking of a lot, it's funny because Deep Space Nine had this character Odo, who was played by an actor named Rene, and I keep forgetting his last name, but his first name was Rene. Played Odo, the security chief of Deep Space Nine. And a lot of people have been asking about Avatar. Renee did several voices in Avatar. It's so fun because you can as soon as he starts talking, you're like, oh my God, that's Odo from Deep Space Nine. As soon as you start hearing it, it's kind of funny. All right, Julius A. Goodwin writes, sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for that, Julius. Appreciate that, man. Do you think any superhero groups could supplant the Avengers in the MCU? I can't see them depending on them forever. Maybe somebody like Midnight Suns, Fantastic Four, X-Men, or X-Factor. Definitely not the Inhumans. Your thoughts? Happy anniversary, by the way. Thank you so much for that, Julius. And yes, I do think at some point you're going to see them do these other team-up movies for sure. But will they ever replace the Avengers? No. The Avengers was the culmination of all of their biggest heroes in one thing. Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. I mean, it's just the culmination of their biggest marquee heroes and stars. Spider-Man and the Black Panther came in later, all that kind of stuff. But there will be other teams that will come in for sure. Whether it's just Fantastic Four or X-Men or whatever, or whether they introduce other ones like West Coast Avengers and whatever else. They could do those things too. But will they ever supplant Avengers? No. I don't see that happening. Like, they're not going to do a movie, like Fantastic Four isn't going to beat Endgame's box office record. X-Men will not beat Avengers box office record. And the next Avengers movie that comes out, whenever it does, but when Avengers 5 comes out, it's going to be the biggest, maybe not bigger than Endgame, but it'll be the biggest Marvel film at that time. So personally, no, I don't see it happening. Anything is possible, for sure, and they will do different team-ups, for sure, but Avengers is their gold standard. And that's the ultimate thing. And yeah, so I don't see that changing at all, man. I don't see that changing at all. Thank you so much for that. We're going to make sure we take this and make it its own standalone video on the channel as well. Give us a few weeks to get caught up on that, though, as we've fallen behind on that because of everything has been so hectic. But you will see this posted up as its own standalone video on the channel in a few weeks. Keep your eyes open for that. And thank you, Julius, so much for supporting the channel on that level, man. That's really, really generous, and we really appreciate it around here. Okay, let's move on now to the next one. And the next one comes to us from Morris Codes, who writes, one of two. Tales of Ba Sing Se, that's the Earth Nation. The season 2 episode with Iroh's picnic has another layer of emotion on top of the story itself. The story became an unintended tribute to the voice actor who died before the finishing of season 3's recording. But before that episode aired, the for Mako at the end. That's true. Yeah, because Mako, who is, of course, a lot of people remember Mako from the original Conan the Barbarian movie, but he died and couldn't carry on with the voice. And I wonder if that might be part of the reason why we didn't see nearly as much Iroh as they should have had in season 3, particularly in the last few episodes. But yeah, that little thing was at the end of that episode was for Mako, who I guess had died after that, before he was able to record the other stuff, which is really too bad. They did a terrific job getting in another voice actor to finish off the series. They did a really good job bringing in a new voice actor to finish off the series, because he did sound a lot like Mako. It clearly wasn't Mako, but they did a really good job getting his sound like that. But yeah, that was definitely a little bittersweet, Morse Codes. Absolutely it was. Okay, guys. Hey, listen, we've now been going, we're almost at 3 hours. Oh my gosh. We're almost at 3 hours. So I need to take another just little short break. Again, just rest my vocal cords for a couple of minutes. I need to refill my drink. So hang tight with me, guys. We've only got about another 15 or 20 minutes of questions to get through, but honestly, I won't make it if I don't give my voice a little bit of a break right now. So hang tight. Give me just a moment, and we will be right back with your thing. Don't worry, it's not 26 minutes till we get back. Just give me a couple of minutes here, and then we'll be right back and carrying things on. We'll see you in just a minute. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you for letting me take a second break, but this is weird going on 3 hours. You know what's funny? I've got a friend of mine who's like a Twitch game streamer, and he'll do streams, that are 3-4 hours long, whatever. But he was like, I talk for just a little bit, and then I don't talk for like a minute or two because I'm playing the game, and then I'll talk a little bit, and then I don't talk. He goes, how the hell do you talk for 2 straight hours? I'm like, believe me, it's not as easy as it looks. It's a little bit rough because the throat starts to get a little bit sore. Anyway, guys, thanks for being patient with me as I went and refilled my drink and gave myself a little bit of a break. Now let's finish off all the live questions here. We're going to pick things up with, where are we at? That was Morse codes. We're at Darklock63, who writes, happy belated anniversary. Thank you so much. Take it for someone who failed at both of these. A successful marriage requires communication and never stop dating each other. Don't assume because you won the prize, it's yours for the keeping. That's true. Yeah, that's the other good thing. Look, number one thing is communication. We talked about that earlier. Number two thing is make sure you keep going out on dates. Make sure you keep going out. Ann and I always make sure that we have time to go out. Even when, and that has been challenging with my job. Working like 14 hours a day. It's tough. And then her with all of her stuff too. We always make sure we make it a priority to, hey, make sure we still go out together. Even if it's just, let's just go walk to downtown Burbank and have dinner out on a patio together. Or let's go do this at the park. Or let's take our cameras and go photographing. Let's go take pictures. So whatever it is, let's go to a hockey game. Let's go, whatever. Always date. You're absolutely right about that, man. That's a good secondary one. Communication first, secondary dating. All right, Dave XP writes, unpopular opinion. The Amazing Spider-Man movies have by far the best Spider-Man visual effects ever put to film. While the MCU movies are great, I feel like they lack in that area, especially on those awesome shots of Spidey swinging through the city. Listen, Dave, honestly, we talked about this maybe about a month or two ago about how I don't think, well, I'm not saying The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one with Andrew Garfield, is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. But I will say that there's never been another Spider-Man movie, either before or after, that made me feel like you were swinging through the city with Spidey. To me, the city swinging stuff of that Spider-Man and that first Amazing Spider-Man movie is the best example of that. You just felt like you were... what's the best way to put it? I just felt like it just brought you in. It immersed you in it. Like you felt that adrenaline, that rush of Spider-Man and that freedom he feels of swinging through the city. I've never seen anything pre or post that Amazing Spider-Man that ever did it as well. I think that first Amazing Spider-Man movie did the best job of it ever. That I agree. I'm not saying it's the best Spider-Man movie ever, but I do think it did that better than any of the other ones. So I'm completely with you on that, Dave. Absolutely. Thanks for saying that in, dude. All right. Crashing Coyote writes, the moment I mentioned before Zuko and the Zhao fighting in black and white was in season 1 finale, and Mako's last episode was when Iroh sings Soldier Boy. Yeah, that was so sing Soldier Boy. Then right after, text pops up saying in memory of Mako. Best episode for me was Sozin and Roku episodes season 3. Which one? I mean, Avatar Roku. But I'm not sure which episode you're talking about specifically. You'd have to give me a little bit more than that. But yeah, man, listen, that is going to be that moment, Crashing. That moment of Iroh in that segment of that episode with the Soldier Boy song. It's just the brilliance of it. Listen, it would have been powerful by itself. If you just get to the end of that episode and, you see Iroh missing his son and singing this profound song about Soldier Boy, come marching home, come home to me. That would have been powerful enough. The fact that they had the narrative storytelling presence of mind to, before that happens, having Iroh singing it as a happy song to a young kid to a young child in the street to make him stop crying for his mother, and singing it as a happy song, then juxtaposed against what happens later at the end of the segment, where you realize he's singing it as a song of mourning over the loss of his son. Oh my God, it wrecked me. If I only ever walk away and take one moment away from Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's not going to be Avatar State, and it's not going to be anything else. It's not going to be the fight against the Fire Lord. None of that. It's going to be that moment, a quiet moment on a hill under a tree where an old soldier takes out a picnic basket with a picture of his dead son and sings a song mourning the loss of his son. Oh my God. I never thought like a show like that would be capable of that kind of storytelling. It floors me. And now, even though it's only been a week since I finished watching Avatar, as soon as I think about Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's immediately the thought that comes to my mind. That's immediately the thought that comes to my mind. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, Casino Crashing. David XP writes, I always get a kick out of watching bad movies. Sometimes watching a bad movie is exactly what you need. As an animator myself, I find it interesting to try and understand how a $125 million movie with talented people working on it can still come out bad. Always looking forward to watching Artemis Fowl XD. But here, this is the thing that I think most film fans don't get, Dave. Making a good movie is a nearly impossible task. That's why we should be so amazed and impressed when we watch a good movie. Making a good movie, money just gives you a lot of tools. Money doesn't make a movie good. Money gives you a lot of tools and gives you a lot of things you can put in the movie, but it does not make a movie good. The art of telling a story in such a way that is engaging and makes an impact and gives an experience to the audience and blah, blah, blah. That is almost impossible to tell because, again, we talk about it all the time. There's so many examples of you can read a script. Listen, I'll tell you right now, one of a really bad movie, Clash of the Titans, the remake with Sam Worthington. Bad movie, right? I read the script to that movie like almost a year before the movie came out. And I thought this movie's going to be great because it reached, but there's a massive step that happens between bringing from the page to the movie, to the screen. And it's hard. Having money doesn't make it any better. Listen, you look at a movie like one of the truly worst movies of the past 5 years or more, which would be, what's the name of it again? Assassin's Creed, right? With Michael Fassbender. One of the worst movies of the past 5, 6, 7 years. There was a lot of great effects. I mean, they paid good money for good effects artists and they did good effects and blah, blah, blah. But none of that stops a bad movie from being a bad movie. And I think we as film fans are often like, oh my God, how could you blow that movie? It's easy to blow. I think we as film fans sometimes lose sight and an appreciation for how near impossible it is to make a great movie. And that is why we should be in such awe and wonder of really talented filmmakers who consistently make good. That's why you got to be amazed by Christopher Nolan and guys like that, because it is so hard to make a movie good. It's so hard. Money won't make it good. Money just gives you the tools, but you still got to tell a good story. But I see where you're coming from on that, Dave. All right, next up. I tried my best, writes. I love how you tell people not to come back with the Rob thing, which you handled perfectly. Do that more. I know you hate doing it because you have way more patience than me, but keep that same energy, kinfolk. F these clowns, keep doing you, bro. So what I try my best is referring to is, look, what would happen was, after the incident with Rob happened, Rob felt, and I agreed with him, Rob felt like he needed to kind of step back for a beat, right? And that was totally the right move. And I agreed with it and supported it totally. I made it very clear, though, when the stuff with Rob was going down, that, hey, listen, I know Rob. I know what he actually thinks. And I know that what he tweeted out seemed odd, but I know that's not what he thinks, and blah, blah. And he's going to take a break for a bit. He'll be back, blah, blah, blah. And he already is back. He's back on the show. But what I don't have patience for is, there are some people who then wrote in, you better bring Rob back or I'm not watching this show anymore. To which I said, okay, well, listen, I'm bringing Rob back because I want to have Rob back, and he's going to be back when he's ready and all that kind of stuff. Rob will be back. But I said, do me a favor, please don't come back. I don't want the type of person as an audience member on here who thinks it's cool that they use their viewership as a blackmail device. Do what I want you to do in your show, or I'm not going to watch your show anymore. Okay, then don't watch my show anymore. Bye. Go away. I honestly don't want you here because I believe that type of person is a toxic and negative influence on the community. And it's like, I don't want that. Like, yeah, I'm bringing Rob back, but the fact that you would use your viewership as blackmail leverage, I don't want you as a viewer. There are lots of great stuff. There's a lot of great stuff, great podcasts, blogs, YouTube channels that you go find something that's doing exactly what you want them to do. And you go do your thing. And there's nothing wrong with asking me to do something, but anybody who would write that to me, I'm like, yeah, no, I really don't need you here. And I don't want you here. And go away. But that's just kind of my feeling of that. Of course, I wanted Rob back too, but it was going to be in his time and his way. But what I don't have patience for, and what I won't tolerate is like people feeling, even if they're viewers, feeling like I can use my viewership as blackmail. And it's like, nah, I don't play that. So I appreciate you being a fan of Rob, but please go away. But anyway, that was just kind of my approach at that. So that's what I try my best is referring to. Anyway, Kazam writes, in my opinion, Cosby's second worst crime against humanity, we all know the first crime, was Leonard Part 6. Like, how did anyone agree for it to be made? What are your thoughts on it? And were you ever curious to see parts 1 through 5? Well, no, obviously Leonard Part 6 was terrible. How did anybody agree to get it made? Simple. Bill Cosby at the time was the biggest star in the world. Yeah, Bill Cosby was going to do whatever he wanted to do. Period. He was the biggest star in the world. And probably one of the most powerful guys in the industry at the time. Man, it still breaks my heart. The thing about Bill Cosby breaks my heart because he was my all-time favorite comedian. He was easily, bar none, my all-time favorite comedian. And you know who else thinks he's the greatest comedian of all time? Most other comedians. There was this great special that Jerry Seinfeld had. And it was a documentary. And there's this part where Seinfeld is at this New York comedy club because he's, working out some new material. And he's sitting there with another famous comedian. I'm forgetting who it was. It was a guy who used to be on Saturday Night Live. And then Chris Rock comes in and shows up. And like Chris Rock, Seinfeld's like, well, where are you coming from? And Chris Rock's telling him, I just came from watching Bill Cosby do a set across town. And they just talked about and raved about how he's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. And my all-time favorite comedy special ever is a comedy special Bill Cosby did called Bill Cosby Himself. That's the name of it. Bill Cosby Himself. To me, for the longest time, is the greatest comedy special ever done. Don't get me wrong. I love Eddie Murphy Raw and Delirious and all the other things, but Bill Cosby Himself to me is the funniest, best stand-up comedy concert I'd ever seen. And I loved Bill Cosby. And it's such, oh God, it hurts. Oh, it hurts when I see when things come to light and you realize he did certain things that he did. And it's terrible. It's terrible. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Kazam. All right. Cody Cordy writes, hey, John, also over the weekend, I watched a couple of action films. I first watched Hobo with a Shotgun, which is Rugger Hauer, which is great. Then VFW. Don't have no idea what that is. Then lastly, 2018 Upgrade. Upgrade was a lot of fun. I loved Upgrade and likely VFW. Hobo was a bit disappointing. Have you seen any of these? If not, I recommend Upgrade. Oh yeah, we've talked about Upgrade a lot on my show. Many times. It's even got that little twist at the end with the AI and all that kind of stuff. Upgrade was a great, low budget, awesome, fun action film that did a lot of very, very cool things with action, proving you don't even need a massively huge budget to do great action stuff, right? They did an incredible job with that. Nice little plot twist and all that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, I dug it. I dug it a lot. And I got a kick out of Hobo with a Shotgun, but there's that. And again, I'm not sure what VFW is. I'm not familiar with that one. So there's that. All right, next up, Edgar Navarro writes, hey, John, hope all is well. All is well. Thank you, Edgar. With Big Bang Theory on HBO Max, would you consider giving it another shot? No. I'm currently on season 5 and I love it just as much as the original run on TV. Thanks. Be safe, everyone. Now, I tried a few episodes of Big Bang Theory. and it just was not for me. I did not find it funny. To me, it sounded like people who have no idea about geek culture trying to write a show about geek culture and completely missing the mark. But that was me. That was me. Other people watch it. I've got a friend of mine who, like, him and his wife are like the world's biggest Big Bang Theory fans and absolutely love it. It's like, to them, it's the greatest show of all time. And clearly it was like super highly rated show. A lot of people love that show, and that's great. But it is not for me. I tried 3 or 4 episodes of it. I never found it remotely entertaining or funny. But again, that's just me. That doesn't mean you shouldn't like it or that other people shouldn't love it. It's just, it didn't work for me. And again, there are far too many other shows that I do need to watch that I don't have any time for. There are far too many other shows that I need to watch and that I want to watch that I'm not going to bump them off the list so I can go back to a show that I already tried and didn't really enjoy. So yeah, it's just one of those shows that a lot of people works for, and that's awesome. But it just doesn't work for me, so I probably won't go back to it. All right. Let's see here. Final question of the day, guys. It comes to us from Edgar Navarro, who also writes, did you know that the same actor that played Leslie in Runaways was also the actor for Tess in Last of Us? I knew I recognized her voice when I first played the game a couple of months ago. You're the best, by the way. I did not know that. Actually, let me get into... I love Runaways. I really do. I love that show. Okay. Wait a second. Why am I not finding it? There we go. Okay, hold on a second. What is this actress's name? I can't find. Hold on a second. Oh, sorry. Hold on a second. I was looking for the wrong thing. Give me a second here. John, this is boring. I know. Just give me a minute. There we go. Annie Wershing. And yeah, it's funny when you go to her IMDb page. This is funny. Let me bring this up. When you go to her IMDb page, the big video that they have is not from one of her movies or TV shows. It's from Last of Us, which I think is pretty funny. Oh, that's right. She was also in 24. I totally forgot about that. Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, I did not know that, man. Thanks for bringing that up. I had no idea that was an actual thing. All right, guys, listen. That'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thanks so much for being here and being a part of this. And guys, hey, listen, remember, the John Campea Show returns tomorrow. It's going to be me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and Aaron Cummings all on the show at the same time. It's going to be the first time we've done a show with 3 of us in months. So we're doing that tomorrow. And guys, if you want to send in questions now to be ready and be among the first questions right on the show tomorrow, you can use the tip link anytime, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. It's the link, if you just want to click on it, is in the top of the description of this video. You can start sending in questions anytime, 24/7, and see them on the next episode of the show that we do. So you can start sending those in now if you wish. Make sure you guys do come back and join us for that show tomorrow, of course, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I want to thank all you guys for making this show a part of your day. I'm super honored that you would. And thank you to everybody who sent in questions. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number 2, you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here on the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys very much for doing that and being part of why we're able to do what we do. So thank you guys so much for that. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.